Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Ben White, Maximum Gravy, Austin Whitsitt, John Kays, DL Hill, Julian Jeremiah, Tommy Swagnuts, Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Nealand, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, theflatearthchannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
So I don't know if it was his temp for like that day.
Temps are temps. They're named like that. I don't know who took your temp away though. If somebody took your temp, I could. How long ago was this?
About 2 months. I think it was Don Gio that gave me the temporal. But more just out of curiosity.
When was it taken away?
Probably the week after, or a couple of days later. Next time I logged in.
Like a week from now?
Yeah, 2 weeks maybe.
Oh, I gotta take a drive somewhere, so I gotta leave actually. Anyways, about the thankless
Later,
roll,
man.
I'll just finish on this because I wanted to say something about the thankless roll and stuff like that, or thankless job or whatever it said. Basically, if you do everything unto God, then it's all for something. And I'm just gonna leave it out now and I'm gonna take off. I'll let you guys go, okay? You guys have a good one.
You too, bud.
Hello?
Hey Neil. Can you hear us okay, Neil?
Yes, I can.
Well, that's good to know, Neil. How's
Coming
everyone
through
else?
nicely to Discord.
What's happening?
Say again.
Good morning.
Solar, hello, 10th.
You coming through well to Discord. It's good.
That's good to know also.
How's my mic check, Nathan?
You're a little quiet, but it's all good.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay. I rearranged my desk. Hey, Lite.
You hear us, Eli? Clearly not. He's not here. He's dropped already.
Oh, okay.
It's
You have
John.
a good weekend?
Yeah, not bad.
Beautiful weather here.
You had good weather.
We always have good weather. I mean, we might have 30 days of bad weather.
Hey, how are y'all?
Hey,
Hey, John.
were we typing in earlier, John?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what I would like to know.
Oh yeah, the nonsensical rebuttal. If they took everything into a pseudo-Romanian geometric claim, then everything could be conceptual. So like it would have no ties to reality, you know. So like with the black swan, they would just say the horizon is geometric. It's just not Euclidean.
I see what you're saying. So if they're going to go live in a dimension that doesn't exist, then they can somehow use that to dismiss reality that does or does not meet their model.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be based on measurements or anything.
Right.
You know.
No, it'd be a calculation, all done in math.
What you're saying is you need a pseudo-geometric horizon. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it would be pseudo-geometric. It would have a angular relation to the eye, but it would just have no distance.
Sorry, how can it have an angular relation to the eye and have no distance?
Well, the inertial vector of Earth is...
Sorry, you're just making stuff up off the top of your head now?
No. I'm trying to put it together. It's what is it? I think special relativity.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hold on, let me go check.
Let me go check. I'll just have a quick look. I'll look it up right quick.
While he's looking it up, how do we get that radius from the GP?
Yeah, you need physical geometry for that. But he's trying to work it out. We'll figure it out.
Google it.
Well, it's just gotten boring, Like I'm trying to help him out a little bit.
Yeah, you're at that stage that Arwen was at. It's like, well, their story's now seeming pretty poor, so they could do with a bit of help.
But I did say it was nonsensical. Like I prefaced it with that.
Well, then that'd be keeping up with where they were at.
Yeah, making sense isn't necessarily a prerequisite for a globe claim to be proof, right?
Straight is curved, curved is straight.
You've got
They
it.
just skip over the pseudo part, the pseudo-Romanian.
Right. Pseudo-Romanian, right? So where the Earth is curved in pseudo-Romanian, that's flat. So we experience it as flat, but
It's like
there's still a horizon. It gets confusing trying to keep up with it.
Oh, that's perfect then. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts, you'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by Neil, father of a stolen child, 10th man, Arwin, we did have Eli, but he seems to have disappeared, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon. You hear me?
We hear you, just waiting for Discord
Alright.
to say anything at all.
Hello.
Hey, hello.
Hello. Very good. Right, we had a slow week last week, and this week I'm more than happy for it to continue, because it's nice and easy for me, as long as we rattle our way through housekeeping in a reasonably concise way. So, let's do that first and foremost. As ever, any evidence of a physical, geometric, sphere edge as a horizon formerly known as Earth curvature.
It would not be a Euclidean geometric horizon that we experience now.
What kind would it be?
What? Are you saying there's this pseudo-Ramonian geometric horizon?
See, Arwen knows where I'm going with it.
He only
Oh,
just
dear.
got here, and I already said in the pre-show, this is very Arwen. So yes, it doesn't surprise me that Arwen immediately picked up on your pseudo-Ramonian geometric, non-visible relating to the eye by way of angle horizon. Yes, just to summarise what you told us in the pre-show.
So how would that work, John, in your baller mode?
Work being, what could it be used for? To do work with? I don't know, John, what kind of work can you do with this pseudo-Ramonian geometric, non-visible, based on the angles to your eye but you can't see it horizon that you told us about in the pre-show?
Well, according to bending geodesics, the inertial velocity of Earth as it moves through an asymptotically flat space-time would give the appearance of a flat Earth.
Asymptotically. Well, it sounds
That's
like
great. What does asymptotically mean?
Well, it's actually a flat space-time as we can perceive it. It's just the inertial velocity of Earth which causes it to seem to curve.
Causes what to seem to curve specifically that I can observe?
The sky.
That would merely be an optical effect. Why would this be a mathematical pseudo-Ramonian? How many dimensions does this have again? 4.
Who's golfing?
Nobody.
How does time move into the argument?
See, Arwin can be your best friend and your worst enemy. Do you want to ask that again, Arwin?
Yeah, how does time involve this pseudo-Ramonian geometric horizon? I mean, I could imagine how that could
Don't
work.
help him.
I mean, oh, okay.
Well, that becomes when you talk about velocity, you'll need time.
Oh, really? What's the velocity of the geometric horizon in pseudo-Ramonian force space?
9.8 meters per second per second.
Hold on, you just relinquished,
What?
you just relinquished a dimension of your very claim, right? You just said it doesn't need time. Well, it's one of the dimensions. I mean, I noticed you didn't answer me when I asked how many dimensions. Oh, yeah, you did. You said 4. One of them's time. Where does the time come into the horizon? The non-geometric... I can't even bother to reel off that list again. You know what I'm talking about. This is for your assistance, by the way, globe-believing Muppets. We're just trying to help you out. Obviously, given that you don't have a straight line to a geometric horizon unless there's a no-atmo day scenario where you don't have any atmosphere, sphere-shaped air to bend the light of the horizon that you're viewing with a sextant. It's a very real problem that's just come to a head after 21 months of you all telling us the horizon's refracted. So now we're in a situation where you need a straight line to it in order to use this tool called a sextant. It's an angle measuring device. Well,
Yeah,
John's trying to... Go on, go ahead.
The claim that the horizon's refracted is obviously wrong. It has to be an effect of gravity.
What has to be an effect of gravity?
Hmm.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Well, apparently the horizon.
Yeah, the black swan.
Owen's shout
No.
today. Owen's on fire. Go ahead, John.
I can't keep going with it. I feel too silly. I was going to say the black swan would be proof, but no.
You say you feel
No, it's
silly
just-
now, and I'm sure that's true. I'm sure you're not just saying that for the sake of it. But there are people, you were one of them not so long ago, that would bark this stuff at people like me with dogged determination and absolute faith in what they were stating. Unless I'm wrong, did you not have absolute faith in what you were stating when you were stating it about globe belief? Because you said you feel silly now.
Well, yeah, because, the horizon, it does seem to have an angular relationship to the eye based off your height off the ground. It's just it hasn't got a determined distance, It's not geometric. So before the determined distance become a factor in the argument, I thought I was measuring geometry.
And the tool, the sextant that we've been talking about so much recently, that utilises geometry though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it uses triangulation.
So straight, flat line along the surface of the ground in order to triangulate things. So that's geometric by nature then.
Looking at that, the picture that's scrolling by on your the feed right now with the boat Nat Geo. It's indicative of the globe for condition, but it also, I mean, because they do gaslight you, they do make you feel like, am I crazy? Like, am I like, there's always a moment where you're like, oh, hold on. Maybe it is the globe, but then this right here is them attempting to demonstrate the geometric horizon, and they aren't even aware of the fact that it's behind the boat because of their own, either because of their bias or because they're trying to pull a fast one. It doesn't really even matter. It's right there. Like, how no one's tried to explain that. No one's tried to say, wow, this was a major source for information, and they kind of just fumbled that, didn't they? No one's talking about it. No one has talked about it. That's what tells me, yeah, the globe stinks.
Timing. So when Nat Geo released this image, people pulled it apart for its fakery. There's various different aspects of it that were slightly dodge, and people were trying to explain away the effect of the flag, or whatever it is, the board that they've got on the back of this boat, and why there's one of the stripes missing. So you get flat earthers at the time trying to explain it with the optical phenomena, and after it came out, we had the black swan argument come to light, and immediately thereafter people go, hang on a second, this is a black swan. The horizon's beyond the geometric limitation. If they're saying the geometric limitation is this optical limit where you've got a missing bit because of the fact that you've got waves, you can see them in the foreground, so they're going to obscure your view because they're big in the foreground and the thing's little in the distance. Meanwhile, the horizon's behind it. So the optical effect that they're claiming is, absolutely matching up to where Earth's curve should be. Well, it isn't, because the horizon's behind it. But nobody noticed at the time because nobody was highlighting the black swan, so it wasn't really a prevalent argument.
I got a rebuttal to the scientific evidence for gravity. I forgot it, but I remember it now.
Okay, go ahead.
Relativity is a mathematical theorem, not a scientific theory. It's just been misclassified.
Come again.
Yeah, relativity is a mathematical theorem. It's not a scientific theory. It's just been misclassified because of the paradigm shift 100 years ago.
It's classified as being physics.
Well, physics includes calculations and mathematical calculations.
No, no, that's
No.
maths. They're very distinctly different. Are you saying it's been miscategorized 107 years ago as physics? Or are you saying that it's been categorized as maths, which is abstract, which we take apart based on the fact that it's abstract, not physical? Are you saying it's been miscategorized as mathematics and should be classed as physics, or it's been miscategorized as physics and should be abstract maths? Which one are you saying? I don't follow.
Well, in the same way that you calculate gas pressure, but it's still physics, we're talking in the same area.
Yeah,
But that requires actual proof, though.
No,
right?
no. The calculation of it is still just a calculation. It's an abstract description. It's just language. So describing something that is physical doesn't make the language used to describe it physical. So yes, you can describe gas pressure with mathematics. That doesn't mean that the description becomes physical. The description is still just the abstract description. That's maths.
Correct.
Right, you got to ground the
Arwin,
concept.
I still haven't had an
into
answer.
reality.
So how has it been miscategorized? Are you saying it's been miscategorized as physics 107 years ago? In other words, what was described when detailing pseudo-Riemannian bending space-time, that's Einsteinian gravity? Are you saying that back then it was described as being applicable to the physical world and really should have been classified as mathematics, or the other way around?
Yeah, I'd say mathematics. It should have been placed into calculations instead of into theory.
Right, well, I'd agree. You know, saying that the description is physical is wrong, and the description applies to nothing in the physical realm to begin with. You know, you're pointing up at the sky and suggesting that your maths are applicable to those phenomena that are unvalidated in terms of their cause. But that doesn't make it physical. It's still just a mathematical description. Pseudo-Riemannian force space. It has no physical attributes at all. I'm struggling to get to the scientific proof, see. Where am I missing it?
Well, I sidestepped the scientific proof by stepping into calculations.
Oh, I see. So when you said that you wanted to address the any scientific evidence of gravity question, what you actually meant was I want to immediately sidestep that question to make it seem like I can answer it by taking it into the realm of the abstract. That's what you meant, right?
Correct.
Oh, how very familiar. Yes, indeed.
So no, my position would be that the question's malformed.
Me asking for scientific evidence of gravity? Not really. If there's a phenomena to study, which they're claiming there is, then it's not unreasonable for a cause and relationship to be established by way of science. The problem is that they don't have a phenomena in the first instance. They merely have the description in maths. That's it. So no scientific evidence of gravity then, but an attempt to sidestep us into the abstract realm of mathematics.
Well, even in the abstract world of mathematics, speaking as a flat earther, again, you still need measurements to base all this off of. You know, like where are they getting the measurements for it?
Measurements of what?
Yeah, I was saying that as a flat earther, like where are you getting the measurements? You know, like to do the calculations to tie this to reality.
Well, that's no problem to answer. I can give you the measurements all day long. You know, I can bombard you with field equations, but that doesn't mean you've got something to be measuring in the first place. They're supposed to be a phenomena, right?
Right. How do you measure something that doesn't exist?
Well, precisely. You can maths a unicorn's farts all day, but they don't exist. But I can give you the calculations, and I can describe them in the abstract realm of maths. Doesn't mean there's anything physical to actually study. The same applies to gravity. In terms of pseudo-Riemannian force space-time bending, that's a conceptual medium described by Einstein. I might allude to the idea that that's governing the way your sky works. It isn't. It's not a physical phenomena. It's a mathematical description. Conjured by Einstein. any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, they're more study-based fields. They wouldn't experiment.
No way.
I asked somebody to pass on the or add you to Master B, Crack Villain. Did anybody do that?
They did, but
Cool.
I am waiting for a PC to be delivered to my house. There was flooding where I live in the southwest last year, and I've been through a cacophony of problems, dude. So I'm trying to get there as quick as I can.
Oh, good. As long as you've been added, no rush. It's not very often people get added across, but there we go.
I know. And I actually am very appreciative, and I thank you. And yeah, I'm actually very happy to be sort of in there more with the heavyweights because I'm sick of being there with the lightweights.
It's more that when there's fundy Discord muting going on, you can't hear anything. If you're in Discord, the person that's doing that, what they actually achieve is stopping anybody in Discord from hearing. Well, there's certain people that are just like, well, no, I want that person to hear everything that's going on. No offence to the other people in Discord. There's some new people in there by the looks of things today. Hello, new people. Hello, Nathan. It's really good to be here also. Oh, well, I'm so touched.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Nathan. Like, so brilliant. Your show's so great.
Said I hated when I was in Discord. I could never hear anything, especially when Rumpus would start.
What?
What? Didn't hear a word of that. I did, really. I'm just joking, Neil. So, no viable hypotheses?
Well, I already said that those are study-based. It'd be wrong to classify them as science, physical science.
Right, but we're asking them to give us physicals. That's what the... You're in a funny mood today, John. Yeah, that's precisely why we're asking the question. If anybody's unaware why we ask for any viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics, it is because they are claimed to be science. In essence, we're asking them for their science. In fact, we're asking them for less than their science. We're not even asking for an experiment, let alone a validated experiment. We're merely asking for a viable, not necessarily actualised, hypothesis. That's all we're asking for. Now, given that they're science,
how
or
could
claim
they
to
even
be,
test a hypothesis? Like, how could they even test one?
That's not our problem. I'm not the one claiming to be science, so it's not my problem.
Yeah.
If you're going to claim your science, give us some science, right? At the very least, give us a viable hypothesis.
Well, they'll never get an independent variable that's possible of being manipulated.
Well, they've got plenty of phenomena, so just give us any viable...
Why is that?
Most of what
Is
they're
that maybe
dealing with
because
is...
they can't manipulate any of the things that they claim that they should be able to manipulate based on the fields that they're in? Clearly, they can't manipulate anything. It's sort of within inside of the description of the actual field that they're in, is it not?
Yeah, they're describing what lights in the sky are, and there might be very different causal relationships to those lights we call stars, and the sun and the moon, right? Well, those descriptions have turned into stories about space travel. Any evidence we can have gas pressure, like we're all breathing, without a container.
You'll like this one. I've been thinking about this one a lot to go with the nonsense, but the inertial vector of Earth creates the available microstates so that the space that they refer to is not available for gas pressure.
Or what inertial vector?
9.8 meters per second.
Sorry, you're assuming Earth has an inertial vector of 9.8 meters per second. That makes no sense.
Right, that's...
That would be per second, or per second.
Right, but
What do you mean, right?
When you hold
Hold on. Right?
Right, when you hold out an object, it's actually Earth rising up to meet it. So that gas pressure is still expanding in all directions. It's just the Earth is overtaking it quicker than it can escape.
So
That sounds very
it sounds
convoluted.
preposterous. So when something escapes from Earth, you're saying that Earth's perpetually chasing the gas upwards?
Yeah, that's what they claim.
In essence, yes. Yes. In essence, yes.
At what speed?
9.8 meters per second per
9.8
second.
meters per second.
So it's accelerating.
Hmm.
So sometime next Wednesday, it'll pass the speed of light, will it?
You always ruin my fun.
So people antipodal from me are traveling away from me as
Yes.
well?
Yeah, this is the bit that always messed me up when it was detailed many years ago on a TV show before I was Flat Earth by Brian Cox. You're like, okay, so if the Earth's rising up in Einstein's idea of what gravity is, then the dude in Australia who's antipode from my position how is it feasible that he's also rising up? I mean, the answer is fairly simple because in the maths it's only applicable to one place at a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's bending geodesics in space-time. The acceleration that I'm describing is a curved path, which is always an acceleration, but it's not necessarily changing speed.
But is that because it's rising up, right? Is that because it's rising up to meet that, but at the same time, due to its gravitational well and the pressing down upon it, which is also another vector of motion, I've heard that it's 9.8 meters per second going down into the gravitational well while going up at 9.8 meters per second. So why doesn't, I don't know, that just sounds like the most ridiculous stuff ever. Like I've never heard anything so stupid in my life.
Where's it taking place? Where's it taking place?
Pseudo-Riemannian force space.
Where's that?
Space-time.
Where's that?
The mathematical conception.
So this is taking
Second
place
law of
in somewhere that.
thermodynamics violation.
No. Well, you can if you say pseudo-Riemannian space-time is the sky vacuum, then yes. But at this stage, what's being described? It's not describing the sky. It's describing pseudo-Riemannian force space. Now they might say that's the sky, but the mathematical description is merely a conjuring from Einstein called pseudo-force space. That's what's happening. That's how it's being described. That's where it's happening. So when it comes to, well, it doesn't quite make sense that the ground's rising up at 9.8 meters per second when there's somebody antipode from my position that would simultaneously be going the opposite direction. It would mess everything up. No, because mathematically we'd describe it from that position with the same exact bending geodesic in space-time and it would work out perfectly. All right, well, that must mean that the sky is a vacuum. Isn't necessarily what's being claimed. The claim is an upward vector of the Earth towards whatever item falls towards it at a 9.8 meters per second acceleration. That's what's being claimed in pseudo-bending force space-time. Merely a description in maths, not a place we actually exist in.
Right,
So then,
that's why I
as
said,
well, just to add to that quickly. So obviously they're not explaining the actual sky because we would be able to observe them from planet to planet because obviously every planet itself has its own gravitational well, meaning every planet has its own, accelerational rate in terms of we have the 9.8 meters per second squared. Other planets have their own, so we would see a differentiation between the two if they were talking about the sky and not just the conceptual abstract mathematics in which we know they're talking about them in, right? We would have this push and this pull. And then effectively over time, we would see a separation in space-time itself. And what would that cause between the two bodies in the separation of space-time? Is that the dilation?
Not exactly.
well, no, all motion is relative.
You're talking about orbits, right? This is orbital mechanics that you're trying to wedge in like they have. They're looking at the sky and they're ascribing descriptions to it. When those descriptions, mathematical descriptions, don't work, they will make the alterations within the mathematics to match the observations that they're looking at. In other words, it's the following the horse following the cart, or whichever way around it is, the wrong way around.
But yeah, that's why I said at the beginning, they're going to have to, if they want to have any chance at arguing at all, they're going to have to hide completely in the mathematics now. There's no measurements that they can go off of.
Yeah, Rumpus declared that one of the last things before he was banned permanently was to say the geometric horizon only exists in the maths. You know, they're already taking it in that direction. Hey, Chocolate.
Wait, Rumpus was banned permanently?
Yeah, for lying.
No
Wow.
way. Oh,
Good
we
morning, good
really
morning.
needed that funding.
Needed?
How?
You have
That was
no-
a joke.
Yeah, they need him. Keep the
Yeah,
audience
exactly.
confused. Alleviates their pain to a certain degree. Doesn't always work.
Hey,
What's up,
Chocolate.
chocolate?
Yo, yo. What's going on?
Hey.
Watch out.
Yes, chocolate.
Like
Cracko.
Hello in stereo?
Cracko, what's up, brother?
Cracko Crosso villain.
How you been, man?
Let's a little bit more housekeeping. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nah.
What is the sun?
I don't know. Let's make up a story and then worship it.
Hold on, I got it. For it to be an object, you would require an R radius to measure its distance.
Well, it is an object. We see it, don't we?
Hold on. That's slightly phrased badly. So they do that, and they do require. But when you say for it to have a size and it must require, that implies that that is the way that it must be done when we don't even know what it is.
Right, but I'm assuming
we could literally be looking at the size of, let's say, like the end of a laser pointer, for instance, right? The size of that isn't necessarily the size of the laser itself, right? Not to say that the sun is a laser pointer. Don't confuse me there. But again, the point, is made there.
Right, but that would be a projection, right? You're describing a projection.
Yeah, sure, but we can make up all sorts of assumptions about what it might be and how it might be measured if it was that thing we're assuming it is. But we don't.
Right.
And I'm not saying it isn't.
Right, that's the trick, though. You got to get someone to argue from another claim. Like you get someone else to make a claim about it. And then your claim against their claim is how you measure what's true.
Right. Attention, all flat earthers. Holding up, in a beautiful false dichotomy ready to be exploited by our opponents, a model. Usually with a couple of suns and moons hovering around the top of a flat plane. Now, again, a very useful idea that might be utilised to describe how something works with perspective for the sake of argument. Well, that implies that you know that the thing has some physicality to reduce in angular size because of its physical shrinking with distance. Of course, I don't know that that's the case with the sun, but it's very useful if we actually make a positive assertion about it, maybe about its height. Very difficult not to when we're talking about the sextant, but we definitely manage it here, don't we? None of us to date have made any claims whatsoever about the height to the sun. Because we don't need to. We can detail how the tool's used, factually accurate in terms of how you get an angle to any navigatable star. Well, acquiring that angle doesn't imply that suddenly we know the height of the star. We just know that you point at it, get an angle, and triangulate with it. And it works. Now, further to that, well, I have no idea what the star that I'm actually using is. I know it can be utilised by way of an acquisition of an angle to it, but that's about it. But if you are one of those flat earthers that are holding up a model, all you're doing is giving your opponent a opening to utilise something called a false dichotomy fallacy. And the false dichotomy fallacy is where you have a model and they have a model. And let's see which works best. Oh, well, what do you know? The globe worked better. Therefore, we're on a globe. And you've got an idiot pancake, haven't you, flat earther? Well, no.
Well,
Go on.
I used to do that. I used to do that very thing a lot and say that things can't work on a flat Earth. Like, well, that's impossible on a flat Earth. is because I had a model in mind when I was describing it and saying those terms. That's the reason people say that, is they're trying to build a model in their mind and compare it to the globe.
Right.
It's the same with the scientific method.
Let's just round out that point.
No.
So just before you go on, Crackvillain. Exactly. So if you're reading a comment or your opponent says that can't work on a flat Earth, ask them to prove their claim. On what flat Earth? Well, which model are you going to be ripping apart? Because I don't ascribe any model to the world I live in. I appreciate one aspect of it. That would be that it's flat. Merely an aspect. Does it mean I know how the sun and the stars work above this plane? No. They've been very carefully logged. And I can utilise that information the same as you can. Doesn't mean I know what they are. Doesn't mean I've got them on a model. It doesn't mean that I'm going to start putting my model against your model. But by saying, that can't work on a flat Earth. Oh, right. The flat Earth that I've said and detailed and handed to you in a model form so you can hold it up in false dichotomy. No. But that's what they require when they say those things. Establish what they're actually claiming. If they're saying these stars can't work on a flat Earth, really, well, I haven't made any claims about that, but are you saying it can work on your globe model? Let's have a little look now, and we'll pull apart your reification fallacy. And we won't even get to my model, because I'm not going to offer one. I don't have one. Why would I want to follow models? That's a reification fallacy.
Well,
What's funny is that we've actually got the method. We've actually got a method, though, have we not? Like, in the sense of the scientific method. So what they're actually trying to do is implicate us into a position of, oh, here, I'll represent the model, and then commit a fallacy in which we are actually claiming you yourselves are exactly guilty of, and then they're trying to establish us to do the same, right? But then the issue is here is it's a dichotomy of this. This is the dichotomy, right? Okay, guys, you make up a model, but at the same time, we'll have a method, but don't stick us to that, but we'll stick you to the model in which you never even claimed to have in the first place. But then don't you dare stick us to the method in which we actually invented and do claim to have. Like, what a crazy world we're in.
Yeah, and well, the part where they say that can't work on a flat Earth, what they're really saying, since we measure the Earth as flat, is that can't work in reality if I'm correct about my assumption.
Yeah, if my sphere assumption is correct, and of course because I'm a sphere-believing muppet, it absolutely must be, that would infer that it absolutely couldn't work on a world that isn't the one I already assume I'm on. Therefore can't work on a flat Earth, because that isn't the world I'm on. And that is the world, therefore not flat, therefore this can't work on it. Now let's see how you describe what I have got on my model working on your model. So I can show you how on your model it doesn't work as well as my model.
It's a very interesting spell that's been cast on people.
I don't live on a model. Why are we talking about models?
Every phenomena that they... Sorry, Chocolate. Every phenomenon that they look into, they look into it with the presumption that we're on a ball. And so, you know, they answer the question of how certain phenomena might work in the context of being on a ball before they've even started.
A trivia question from Retro Bill in the super chat, who says, I assume this is directed at fundy globe-believing morons, Retro Bill. Trivia question. Are astronauts on the ISS experiencing quote-unquote weightlessness because gravity is too weak at that height, or simply because they are falling around the Earth like a perpetual vomit comet? Question mark. Thank you very much, Retro Bill, for the super chat. Hopefully someone will address you in the chit chat from the sky vacuum orbit assuming fundy side of this argument. Thank you very much for the super chat.
3 chats down, Nathan. I've answered it.
Oh, you answered it. What did you say?
It's a G value at 250 miles of 8.6 meters per second is what it calculates there to be. So it's pretty much falling. It's a vomit comet is the reality.
Yeah, it's
1.2 difference.
It's orbital. Presupposition of falling.
Yeah.
Like Earth is presupposed to fall around the sun, and the moon presupposed to fall around the Earth, etc., etc.
And now the Earth presupposed to fall up at 9.8 meters per second in the conceptual abstract mathematics.
What a bunch of nonsense.
Oh, what's an orbit?
Presupposition. It's a presupposition based on an R value.
No. Are we okay with the word orbit? Because orbit originally did just mean to circle, right? Obviously, we understand that now it's like gravity, right? Gravity has lots of other things attached to it now. It means other things, like, the gravitas of a situation, for instance. So orbit. Are we okay with that word?
No.
Or is it because it?
Yeah, but
No.
that's why I ask what's an orbit, because I want to know what their definition of orbit
in
is
context,
that they're using.
In context, an orbit's a begging the question fallacy. It's the presupposition when looking in the sky that the rocks that you assume they are fall around one another, and we are the same as those rocks falling around the sun. So it's a presupposition. Just the word orbit just begs the question.
Well, what if you use
Socratic-
it colloquially, like an orbit just to spin around something, rather than the idea of gravity and things falling around each other, masses and all that?
I use it at all.
Yeah, but it elicits now, doesn't it? Now that orbit, it's like I said with the word gravity, right? The issue is that because gravity now isn't just this idea of things apparently falling down at 9.8 meters per second, right? Yeah. And I don't even know, again, I don't even want to go into that at this moment, but that is what people state all the time on the flat earth side as an agreed upon average fall rate. It's the same thing. But when I say gravity, do you just think of that? No, you don't. So when I say orbit, do you just think of orbit as in to circle around? No. It's a reification of the globe again. So that's why it's a problem.
It's defined that way. I just looked it up. The curved path of a celestial object or spacecraft round a star, planet, or moon, especially periodic elliptical revolution. It's just laying out the begging the question. And then it's got
there is why I asked what's an orbit.
It's just
I was in the same position as you there, Chocolate.
A word used to beg the question. There you go.
Exactly. So what's that again?
They even describe
I don't think
it.
I'd use it in any other way other than if I was talking about celestial objects. If I was talking, using the word orbit, I don't think I would use it in a flat Earth sense. It wouldn't have a purpose. The simple fact you use orbit, you use it because it describes 3D motion, doesn't it?
Begs the question.
Yeah.
Okay, I could give you a use of it, Chocolate. You're the new hotness in the club, thus the girls orbit you in the club.
Yeah, well, that's the second definition. Yeah, they've tried to introduce it as a colloquial definition, but they tend to, and there's something that uses a scientific term. They'll dumb it down into a colloquial term and then sandwich it in when claiming science. Well, this is no different, but the reverse. So in other words, they've got a word that literally begs the question for their sphere Earth, because next to it, when I've looked it up in Google, in physics, an orbit is the gravitationally curved trajectory of an object, such as the trajectory of a planet around a star, or a natural satellite around a planet. In other words, this word directly is utilised to beg the question. That's its main purpose. But underneath it, number 2, an area of activity, interest, or influence. And then it gives the example. An audience drawn largely from outside the party's orbit. Has said nobody fucking ever. It's just a word to beg the question.
We still got to do Coriolis. Talking about begging a question.
Yeah, Coriolis is a real effect you can observe from a non-inertial turning roundabout as you observe the not actual deflection of a branch hanging over it move towards you and come to get you. The coming to get you of the branch is the Coriolis deflection. Absolutely real, easy to describe in real life if you're on a turning reference frame. It's utilised differently. It's not just a word that says Earth spins. It's
So that's an apparent deviation, right? Because you're
You wouldn't
already
say it.
circling around, correct? So it appears to deviate, but really it's actually going in one vector.
It doesn't have
Am I
to move
correct?
at all. That's why I use a tree limb. It's the appearance of the tree coming to get you. Oh no, the branch is coming to get me. These scary trees, they're attacking. No, it just appears to be coming towards you because you're on a roundabout with a tree limb hanging over it. So the apparent deflection of the tree limb is Coriolis deflection. Doesn't have to be moving at all.
But
okay, sorry, I was thinking the analogy with the basketball. That was why, I guess. No worries.
The only reason I bring it up is to describe Coriolis, you'll need to assume there's an axis first to have spin, right?
They are
correct.
tied.
That's
yes.
correct.
I see your point. They're tied at the hip. Yes, correct.
So that's where they get their trick on that one, is they claim that hurricanes are traveling straight.
What axis?
Hurricane culture.
Perfect. Chocolate. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
What
That's a
axis?
negative.
What axis? Well, precisely the one I'm going to assume.
Oh, that one. Oh, okay.
Fallacy.
Yes. Assuming spin is a fallacy. Begging the question.
I'm not being a good glober.
You're being all right. Is that it? Are we done with rotating and deflection and all these things? If so, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Of course not.
Hell
Absolutely,
no.
of course not. Went through that before, didn't we? Where it was what the the people that were involved in geology, I believe it was, the people that were actually actually analyzing the things in the various depths as they went down, the various predictions that were made via the same people again that were using the seismologists as well as the geologists, right? The same field of seismology that predicted, and remember it was Newton first that predicted the main layers of the Earth, right? The main 3 layers that were off of nothing but a whim, and then it was reified by the field of seismology. But that same field years later with much better equipment, again, remember, on the super, is it Koala or Koala? Someone bite my head off, please go ahead. Borehole, at whatever depth it was like 7.8 miles, right? They had absolutely everything they predicted from the same field that reified Newton's idea wrong. Basalt salt at a certain depth, wrong. Bacteria wouldn't be found, wrong, found. It would be denser as they got deeper, wrong. They were wrong on all counts.
You don't mention any of that.
Don't you need a radius for that?
If just for the interest of balance, if you're a globe believer and you want to know how to make that argument without highlighting any of these obvious problems, just say, repeat after me, P waves and S waves. You don't have to mention any of that stuff. I don't know why you did.
Oh, yeah, and if you are going to go with the P wave and S wave, you can say, well, radar wasn't always perfect in measuring, but it got better through time. So P waves and S waves will improve.
Appeal to the future fallacy. They haven't measured it now. They're not accurate, but there's a good chance in the future, like this false comparison I'm now going to draw, it'll get better too, because it's basically the same as radar, even though it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't Google ever say that? It never says maybe sometime in the future we can measure it. Maybe one day we can measure R. They seem to have a number there already.
I mean, it is.
Why am I told that? Why am I told that?
It's a reasonable pattern, though,
Nathan,
isn't it?
you are correct there, actually, though, that I don't need to say all of that, do I? And I guess the propensity for me to do so is because I feel like I have this need to like almost throw them under the bus, as if to cast to everyone else watching, the fundies and the globers, to show exactly how inaccurate they are even now, as opposed to where they originally first, come up with the idea of this. And it was just an idea. And it's just to simply illustrate, I guess, that, they didn't know what they were on about back then, and they still don't now, and they're still wrong. But that's not my job to do so, and you're correct. And I shouldn't do so.
Okay, let's play a little game. What I want you to do is tell me if the thing I list has improved or got worse with time. Okay? So, freedom concept. All you got to say is it's got better with time or worse with time.
I didn't hear it.
Freedom. Has it got better with time or worse with time?
That's subjective.
Worse.
Not physical.
Good. Oh, that was a trick question to start off with, and John got the right answer. Say that again, John.
It is subjective, yeah.
It's a concept. It's subjective to the individual.
Perfect. Good answer. That's why I did it first, so we could rule those out, all of them. So what we're talking about is stuff that we can assess subjectively, right, John? Okay, next example. Cars.
Subjective.
Yeah, have they subjectively got better with time? Or worse with time?
Depends on what aspect of it you're talking about.
In general.
Again, I say subjective.
So subjectively, your 1960s car with no seatbelts was objectively or subjectively better or worse than a 1999 Rolls Royce with seatbelt pretensioners. Obviously, they've improved. Why are you being awkward? This was supposed to be fun.
Sorry, because of different tastes, I guess. That's why I thought that's subjective to me, maybe. Yeah, but yeah, of course, cars in general, safety, yeah, better engineering, yes.
Right.
That's
Aircraft.
subjective.
Aircraft generally got better with time.
Correct.
Yes.
Excluding Concorde.
Ugh, God damn.
Concorde
isn't.
only had one crash.
Hold on, no, that's not true. Because if you include all aircraft, and in other words, anything that we've produced that goes into the air, we have evolved beyond Concorde. There's fighter jets that are far more advanced than Concorde.
Correct.
So,
true.
Now that we've got that caveat out of the way, have they improved or got worse with time?
Worse.
Worse? What do you mean worse?
Improved. Yeah. They've improved.
No, they took away our technology. We had flying technology that was better in Tartaria. I don't know,
Tartaria.
man. I like my lunar module on the moon.
With any
with
other cross-section of society, this would be easy. Bloody flat earthers.
I'm sorry, Nathan.
Yes,
I started that.
Aeroplanes have improved over time.
The technology has improved, yes.
Okay. What about this? Will be the
Blimp
last
technology has gone downhill. Blimps got way worse. Where are they?
It's coming.
It's coming. If you've already figured out where I'm going with this, then well done, 10 points. Last one before the main obvious one that some people on the panel have already figured out. What about culinary equipment? Has it improved over time? Pestle and mortar being a good example of a starting point, and an electric bloody whisk for a modern example? I don't know. Don't tell me it hasn't improved is what I'm trying to get at.
It has improved.
Thank Jesus. Praise be to Allah. So, what about space?
No.
Oh, Rumpus, the actual point that makes the point. What about space travel? How's that gone on? Is it improved?
Yes.
Nothing, because it didn't exist ever.
I'd go back to the moon in a nanosecond, but we've destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to bring it back.
Invoking emotion.
What about...
The CGI gotten better.
The CGI has improved. Are there any examples, technological examples, where there's been a devolution? I mean, I can think of some pretty crude examples, like, for example, the microwave. Right, it reached a point, it reached a pinnacle, maybe in the 90s, there or thereabouts, where microwaves could basically do everything with all sorts of buttons and gizmos and all sorts. You could add bits of water to them to moisten up the stuff, and they weighed and they did all sorts. Modern microwave is cheap and rubbish because people don't like them so much. So they've got worse. Not because, they've actually devolved, but moreover that the technology is just not worth investing in, so therefore it's just got cheaper and cheaper and not really progressed. It's just kind of reached a standstill. Yeah? But can we get any other examples that have literally got worse as time has progressed?
Pretty much no.
Well, it
Not
would
ones
take
that
people.
matter.
It would take people's interest to drive things to stay at a standard, right?
I mean, it's not weird that we were able to accomplish things between 1969 and 1972 that we cannot accomplish in 2021. You think that's weird?
But that's what's
Get outta here.
interesting. So
No, they
every
could go-
aspect of what Nathan spoke about has improved. So rocketry technology has improved, right? Okay. Navigation has improved. Okay. But space exploration has, well, I wouldn't even say it hasn't unimproved or anything because it didn't exist in the first place.
Regressed.
But
you're right.
it's
Crackvillain's right.
devolved.
Like, this is a farce. We're begging the indulgence of the audience in this respect. And we all know, let's just get that out of the way. The sky is not a vacuum. There's nobody travelling to the moon. There's nobody travelling to Mars. The area above your head is not an infinitely expanding space for gas to fill because we'd all be dead. Notwithstanding the fact that the sky is not a vacuum, we're just assessing the claims that they make in terms of the technology for when they travel off to Narnia. Now, in terms of their current narrative, they were able, in terms of rocketry, because it was rocket boosters that claimed to take the men from the gas pressure we're breathing into the second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum, and then land in an area that they'd never ever visited, completely uninhabitable. And they managed to land there. How many times did they land there? In the 60s and 70s? Perfectly. Every time. Without issue. Now, there was a bit of a folly on the way, but ultimately speaking, everything was all good and they all managed to land. That was the standards of rocketry in the 60s and 70s. Now, how well's Elon Musk getting on at landing on Earth when he goes a bit up in the air? Does he always have a 100% success rate? Does he? Hell. So the standards, if you want to believe the CGI nonsense that they portray on TV for the masses, has got worse in terms of rocketry.
Well, they're dancing a fine line, aren't they? Because if they did do another moon mission, right? People are more used to the CGI. They've seen Hollywood dazzle them. So they would be looking for the tricks. So for them to go back to the moon would actually damage their claim because people would look at it and be like, that looks like crap. Like, I don't think that's not real. I
or
think
it
would
just
be more
wouldn't
damaging.
look anything like
what happened
what
to
it did back then.
Sorry, Greg, go ahead, man.
No, I think we said the same thing. So go ahead.
Nah, I was gonna bring up my man from Project Orion, right? Like the guy that came out, I think it was like 2014. It came out. It was just like, we got to solve these problems before we send people to this region of space. And that was always weird to me because, hello, did we send people to this region of space before? 6 times successfully? To the moon?
Okay,
They brought a
so-
car
Yeah, I
with them
remember
and
him
all that?
saying that it was one of the last things they needed to find out, right?
Yeah. He was just like, we need to solve these problems before we send people to this region of space. The region being the Van Allen belts. Hello, the astronauts did have to go through that to get to the moon, guys. So I don't know, did they just throw him out to dry? Like, did they not include him in the briefing? I don't understand what happened there. Were we supposed to forget that there was a moon landing? That one is weird, and I haven't seen that.
A
guy. I don't
moon
know if
landing.
he's still
A
alive.
moon landing. So just to reiterate Nathan's point, 11 successful landings by the United States, 8 via the Russians, 3 via the Chinese. So his point is exactly as stands. We go along via their narrative, right? Is that rockets, and we know this with intercontinental ballistic missiles, are extremely effective now, more so than in the past. They are definitely an improved technology,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Elon Musk cannot
hold
land.
Hold on. So ICBMs. What do you know of these things?
A little bit.
Okay. How'd you know it?
I only. Oh. In what sense?
In the sense that you believe there are intercontinental ballistic missiles, correct?
I believe there are missiles at a long range.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, the Russians did release some information a little while back when their hypersonic missiles were announced to the world to have been
hypersonic
produced.
Russians, hypersonic.
Yes.
Ooh, wow, this sounds juicy.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
All I see ICBMs
before we go on,
are
just before we go on, what terror level should I be at precisely for this information to be delivered to me? Should I be at orange?
As high as possible.
Really? Red? Okay. I'm at red terror level for this information.
Before we go into the fear-mongering stuff, I would like to point out, if I could give a valid explanation for why they haven't gone back, would it make the first trip valid?
No. I mean,
no.
But you can try. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying that I think the reason they say the things that they do is to keep the idea of space travel in people's minds, but not going back as to bring it too much attention. You know, it's like a delicate balance of people thinking it's real without ever really looking at it.
Perfect segue. So the reason this has come up, or the reason I had the idea to run that little game, is because of somebody we've been shouting out more and more recently, and old hand in this particular arena, which is Jeranism. Now, Jeranism, when I originally came to this subject, was a dab hand at finding out this farcical footage. He's even made freedom of information requests in the past for footage from these frauds. And he's got it all, he presumably got it all stashed away on his hard drive, and he manages to compile it. It makes it seem easy. I'm sure it's a hell of a lot of work, but I don't want to get into that without giving him too many YouTube props in terms of the work he does. What you get presented with when you go and see things like the Comedy Hour is the cat's already out of the bag. I agree with you, John. It would be best not to highlight it too much, but then you've got someone like Jeren, who will sit and literally go through the 1950s, 60s, 70s footage laughing at it. Because, unfortunately, technology and time has caught up with this dusty old crap, so now when you do highlight it and look at it, you can really see how bad it is. And you've got to mentally stretch yourself to a very fine point to go, yeah, I still think it's real, when someone like Jeren is exposing that. Now, it's a return to form for Jeren, because he, as far as I'm concerned, moved away from this subject to a certain extent. I know he always covered it, but it wasn't covered in the way he's doing it presently. And it's a proper return to form in that respect. And maybe it's easy, because he's got all this information to hand, and I hope he continues doing it, because I'm finding myself watching Jeranism more and more and more and more and more. I don't know about you guys, but that's certainly what I'm doing at the moment, because he's covering things that I have no interest in looking into for myself. In other words, the sky vacuum argument's over in a heartbeat. Therefore, I lost all interest with it pretty soon after coming to the subject. So therefore, it does take someone else like Jeren to dig into it, to highlight it. Same goes for people like Dilly Gill, who I've got a lot of respect and time for. But Jeren's doing it, and it's just a natural at it. But I haven't got the time or effort or inclination to do stuff like that, and he has. And it's extremely valuable resource, especially if you're unaware of this. I mean, to be fair, I've seen probably 100% of what he's got to show already. Doesn't mean I don't really like him sitting in front of it, laughing his head off and going, yeah, but now look at this from the perspective of somebody that's a globe believer buying into this nonsense. Let's see how many times he uses the word incredible or phenomenal or nominal or whatever he's doing for that particular comedy hour. It's just a different way of looking at stuff that has now become so detached from my reality, as it's become genuinely, hysterically funny to watch.
Can I throw out a little disclaimer
to the point where the people that believe in it don't want to watch it. whenever I ask somebody who believes in this crap, who wants to argue with me about this nonsense all the time, and I ask them, have you ever watched it? Have you ever seen it? No. Maybe a few seconds here or there, but they don't watch it. They don't care. And it's like, but you believe this shit. I just had this conversation the other day with a coworker. Like, you believe this nonsense, but you refuse to watch it. Why? Because when they do, it becomes problematic. Like, I had a dude that watched, I got him to watch the SpaceX nonsense when they were launching their crap into the ISS and all that. And he came to me and said, holy shit, I'm seeing things I probably shouldn't be seeing. This looks really bad. I said, see, all you had to do was look, but you refused to. How long did you argue with me before you decided to actually look at it? Because he was mad hype. Oh, they're going to the ISS, bro. he was all hitting me up, bro, you about to get lit with this ISS crap. He's the one who came back to me. It was just like, yeah, I don't. How are rockets just appearing? Like, what is going on? And I said, all you have to do is watch it.
With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the super chat and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering Stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Because the people that are really interested in looking into it, they're gonna, see the problems eventually.
Maybe.
So the issue with the intercontinental ballistic missile, again, is in the actual phraseology of the word itself, right? Intercontinental ballistic missile, right? There's an issue therein straight away. I'm yet to see evidence of intercontinental ballistic missiles as they are. I probably shouldn't have even used that phraseology. What I do know of is just surface to air or surface to air to ground missiles, right? Which is completely different. This could be akin to using artillery pieces almost, right? Effectively. But yeah, they're fear-mongering weapons. We know this. The idea of nuclear missiles being sort of traveled across, minimum of 6,000 miles across, different from one continent to the next, is something completely different to what I was going to actually refer to. What I was referring to really was that the sheer sort of hypocrisy and mismatching the narrative, right, of the successful landings with China, Russia, etc., how they apparently have the technology back then, but today we can't see a rocket land on a boat. With SpaceX, it's quite palpable, in fact, that has got worse, but the various factors involved inside of apparently have increased in terms of the technology. Just to sort of like bolster your point, that was Nathan.
But they didn't share the wealth though with Israel and what was the other one? India, who both in 2019 could have landed something on the moon. 2019. Got no people on it. He didn't bring a car. He didn't bring a moon buggy. He didn't do any of that. Just a little stupid probe, and you still couldn't land on it. even if you could, you still didn't. It's ridiculous. In 2019.
They did state as well, did they not, Chocolate, that they did nothing to the car in order to prepare it before they sent it out to space with Tesla? Did they not? It was just bog standard car,
the Tesla car.
right?
Yeah. I wasn't even
You
talking
remember?
about that. I was talking about the moon buggy.
But I'm talking about that at the moment. I was just saying
the
that
Tesla. Yeah, he just said it was like he just took it out of straight off the lot, just or something
so
like that. Just
what
put
would
it up there.
happen to that?
I think a whole lot.
What would happen to that? Where?
In Narnia. I mean, Sky
in Narnia. Exactly.
See, that's the whole point you've been arguing the whole time. They begged the question to begin with. Now, why are we going there?
Because
we played the harp music a long time ago. We've been in Narnia.
Exactly. It's kind of me saying to people who might, I'd say there's probably very few people that come here first, but if they were to come here first, you go, okay, so you understand a physics level that you can't have gas pressure without a container, therefore the sky can't be a vacuum because we'd all be dead. Okay, but what were they doing throughout the last 30, 40, 50 years to convince you that that was precisely the case? Let's have a little look at it, going back through time, and that's what Jaren's doing. So long as you, and I did get the disclaimer in after about a third of that discussion, let's drop the fantasy and explain to the audience, we all understand that space is fake. But how did they do it? We're looking at the how. How did they fake us all this time? Let's go back and have a look.
But that's kind of my position of where I've been for like the last 3 months, really, and further back, is that's kind of the frame of mind that I've been in, is how did they do it? And obviously starting with the moon landings, if we look at what the moon landings were, effectively at the time of the Cold War, and the narrative I'm on about, not actually what happened and what we know to be true, the narrative, right? And the narrative being that of guys, you either accept right now something that is pretty much implausible, right? Or, and a lifetime achievement for the world that we can all revel in, okay? Or we can effectively admit defeat and effectively state that we don't have a delivery mechanism in order that we would be able to defend ourselves against a superpower that would maybe far supersede that of America. So people were given this is game theory 101. This is an emotional response. They elicit an emotional response from the people in their decision making as it happens, and that's where it started, I believe, is that right, you either take a world lifetime achievement or you accept that you are less than this country that could destroy you, right? And in that decision, it's very easy to accept the lifetime achievement over the acceptance that, we could be invaded and that we are defeatable.
Well, just going back to what you were saying about how the trick was done, has anyone seen that video where they're watching a rocket launch and the rocket's taking the parabolic arc and the kid points out that it's coming back down to Earth, but all the parents correct him and say, no, it's going into space?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's one of my favorites, where the kid's like, Daddy, it looks bad. It looks like it's coming down.
Chocolate, do you think that was a planted piece of propaganda then? Is that what you guys are saying?
I mean, it just sounded like a kid just being a kid. Like, look, that doesn't look like it's going up into space. It looks like it's coming back down. That's just a kid.
Didn't the father say, well, that's because Earth is turning? Something like that.
Probably something like that in the background, trying to scramble, like, yeah. Yeah.
But that's the trick, They went and seen something. They don't know what actually happened, but they've been told what to believe, and then they enforce that upon their kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where you start, though, right? You start with the children. You start with the indoctrination of the kids. You give them a spectacle. You give them something in which to look at that will be a moment in their life that they can forever have a nostalgic attachment point to. And these nostalgic attachment points, too, often are, when I'm dealing with globers, these are the things that keep them welded to the globe. For instance, I don't know if you remember this. Remember with DLA Indoraptor Chocolate? It was him and his grandfather building a telescope and looking at the spheres in the sky as he saw them. That was the very thing that kept him welded to the globe, was it not?
Yeah, I do remember him.
That
Yep.
emotional response. And this is how they do it. They play on emotion in order to gain some form of solidity inside of the minds of the individuals that are young.
Well, even with NASA, because they have a large industrial complex behind them where they, make the dream work. There's people that think they're doing a job to take something to a place that can't exist, but because they're physically doing something, it makes them feel involved in it. And then there's other people related to them that can then say, my grandfather built the rocket that went to the moon. And then there's that pride attachment that way as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, the pride. Exactly, there's the pride. There's the nostalgia. So, and then also, like I said, there's the patriotism part as well. Also, because it's something that's an achievement of the nation at the same time as the nostalgia, because at the same time as the parental sort of, or should I say, the parentage attachment, the pride attached to that. So, that's a very powerful mix.
I wondered about that patriotism part, right? So supposedly, and again, yeah, we're still in Narnia. All the harp music, all you want, right? We're still in Narnia. So, wasn't there supposed to be a space race, right? Like in a race,
yes.
don't usually the participants like to finish the race? Why was there this I don't know, an opponent that didn't finish their race? Where's the patriotism of this country that supposedly we were in a space race with? I mean, they don't have that patriotism. They didn't want to put people on the moon. Why is it only NASA got to put people on the moon?
Well, that was kind of my point, Chocolate, is that it wasn't a space race, was it? It was a race towards what the public believed to be a delivery system of a nuclear missile. Because the emotional response elicited via the people was this. You have a choice. The person that gets there first, right, okay, then has this. They have the emotional response of this. They have Russia with the Cuban Missile Crisis, okay? They have all of these different things leading up to these events, right? So they have an emotional response. You can either choose to believe that you are the ones now with the delivery system and you can accept it and have a lifetime achievement with a national and patriotic sort of caveat to it, or you can then go and cast aspersions on the very thing itself, the moon landing, and go, no, we can't do that. And in doing so, you admit to the whole nation and spiral them into a panic that, oh, wait, Russia may then next have the delivery mechanism of the nuke before us, right? Whereas this is why we know it's a globalistic cabal type thing, because it wouldn't have mattered. They would have just both raced toward the delivery system, right? Or toward the space race. But like I said, it was accepted as the narrative in order, this is my opinion anyway, so that, again, people could just go, right, yeah, cool, we have the mechanism in order to deliver the nuke. We can see this as a lifetime achievement. Thus, we can move on and we can be happy, right? Otherwise, what do we accept?
Along with the theater of capitalism beating communism,
Uh-huh.
Well, hearing what you're saying in game theory and me researching cults and whatnot, it's funny because when you talk about this emotional response, I thought about it. Well, first of all, it'll be a silly thing to ponder for a second until I elucidate my point. What if we're the controlled opposition?
You have to
in that
explain.
situation we are.
Hold on. Just expand on what you mean.
Right. In this situation, as flat earth, it's like when we think of controlled opposition, we think of someone who's playing both sides. And the controlled opposition is usually the group that people take to be authentic, but they're really not. But what if it's actually that we are controlled opposition? So what I mean is, now, if there is no us, Remember when there was no us? No one cared about NASA to the point that I didn't think it existed anymore. I thought that I heard rumors of it being shut down. I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson saying it was being defunded because nobody cared about it. Remember that? But now all of these fundies have opponents because we feel it necessary to shout at the mountaintops something that is blatantly obvious.
Okay,
I would say there was always a version of us, though. It might not have been flat earthers, quote unquote, but there was always a version of people that were out there questioning NASA hard. I mean, I remember this in the late 90s, early 2000s. So many series and shows about are the moon landings real? Are they fake? Did they fake it? You know, I remember that.
Yeah, but in a situation where something actually happened, that component isn't there. But in a situation where you need a narrative to be fueled, but it isn't really real, well, you need two sides to play the game.
Eli, add this to the mix to what you're saying. Okay, so instead of it like that, right? What it is you need the opponent, right, to appear to be the one that is so infinitesimally small, but at the same time projected out using algorithmic power as bigger, right? So we're seen as poor. We're seen as the people that are small, infinitesimally small, meaningless, matterless. We couldn't affect anything, right? But yet we still give credibility to the idea of the opposite, meaning that we give credibility to the idea of it being faked. But at the same light, in the way that we have been cast and the aspersions that have been casted toward us and the way that we have been portrayed under a light of, you know, these people are crazy and nutty, what they can do is then frame the response toward the obvious, you know, cultural and various groups that were saying this is fake and clearly so. They can then frame it as from a position of individuals now that are classified as clowns, that being us, the flat earthers. So that is what I mean when you say the controlled opposition. That's what I mean by it. It's framing the opposition toward the thing that we know as Narnia, but it's framing it in the light that they would like it to be framed in, which is that let's add this
i.e. controlled. Yes,
point.
Perfect. Thank you.
No,
Attaché point.
Hold on.
Yeah.
There's a distinct difference between quote unquote controlled opposition, and you defined it perfectly. You're like the person that is playing both sides of the fence. They come across as being an opponent, but actually they're very much kept under the control of the person who's in control in the first instance. So in this context, that's the Flat Earth Society. You know, they're putting out narratives about Earth rising up at 9.8 meters per second, just like gravity. They're talking about space, just like in the heliocentric model. And they've got ludicrous things that they ascribe to what we would then have to defend with the stereotyping fallacy because the controlled opposition has put it out. But then when you juxtapose that onto us and say, well, aren't we unwittingly on both sides of the fence? No, we're opposition that's kept...
Isn't that a...
Hold on. We're opposition that's kept under control. So in that respect, well, yeah, we don't get our stuff put out as much as our opponents on the anti-flat Earth side. So where it used to be, there was tons and tons of stuff on YouTube in the mid-2000s, late 2000s, that was just globe rhetoric, and you could make a really decent living out of just putting out bog-standard globe rhetoric on YouTube. As soon as it got commercialised, that could make you a living. Then you get the anti-flat Earth, the flat earthers contesting that. Now, we are the genuine opposition, and all the time, the whole time, there's been the anti-flat Earth, I keep saying anti-flat Earth, the controlled opposition Flat Earth Society. They were always in place and have been for a considerable amount of time, just keeping it in the public domain to a certain extent, so when it's needed, it's at the top of the search results, which it is. Well, then, after the... I'm nearly there. After the Flat Earth comes along and contests the Globe Earth, you then need something to contest that. Well, when it was Globe Earth, they were obviously promoted because it was all there was at that time on YouTube. Then the Flat Earth gets promoted because they're the only thing that exists. There is no anti-Flat Earth. Tiny little handful of people, Red Rhetoric being one of them at the time. Tiny, tiny, tiny sub-community. Then, that's tiny sub-community gets pushed to the forefront where the flat earth was currently at the forefront, they get suppressed, meaning kept under control and replaced with whatever the narrative needs to be, in this case anti-flat earth, to follow on from it. But that doesn't mean that we're playing both sides of the fence like the Flat Earth Society are. It's different to be under control or kept under control as opposed to controlled opposition, which is something very different.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
true, and
well,
I
in
agree
the
with
way,
that. I agree with that, Nathan. I just wanted to make a distinction.
hold on, because it was my point.
No, yeah, I
What
know.
I'm saying, it's multi-layered. So it's multi-layered. So okay, fine. You have, in this case, Flat Earth Society coming out to say really ridiculous things, in which the flat earther who could give a toss about what globe earthers say is now enraged for people putting on to him what he does not believe or support. So now he has to, or he feels like he has to defend himself, in the sense when that response is elicited, that emotional response, it is controlled. So I'm not saying there's just one way to define it. I'm saying that's another aspect.
Yeah, no,
to look
I agree. We're ushered in certain directions. We're presented with certain obstacles that we are supposedly supposed to be overcoming. And often people will just fall into those traps like they feel it's necessary to defend certain aspects they haven't even claimed in the first instance, get into the wrangle-dangle with false dichotomies like we described on the live show. But you don't have to. I certainly don't. I don't feel like I'm entitled to being pushed around by anybody and forced into doing anything ever. You know, I'm very much my own man. But in the same breath, I'll say, you know, there's certain things that I probably still hang on to, either through linguistic programming, i.e. the words we use and the connotations that are attached as a result, or other things that I, you know, like ICBMs earlier. Not that that's me, but I'm just saying there might be certain things in the audience that you haven't even considered. And this is where the fear from some of our opponents comes from, like Chocolate was detailing with his work colleague. Her fear comes from having to assess things like that. You know, ICBMs might not be the first thing that she's thinking of, but suddenly you're in a position where you have to assess everything as being propaganda, potentially. Well, is this propaganda? What's my primary source evidence for this claim I'm making? The TV? The mainstream narrative? The propaganda? Oh dear, that might need assessing then. Wouldn't it be much easier if you could just say, yeah, it's true that we're at war with Oceania, the TV said so.
Well, one thing that another option to this is they're just holding back the floodgates of a paradigm shift. And that's
I
what
agree
the
with that too.
censorship is about.
Yeah.
My favourite one on that list, Nathan, is John Le Bon's Does North Korea exist? That's kind of the extreme, but it really exemplifies the point. Does North Korea, as it's portrayed to us, does that country actually exist? We're not allowed to go there. We're only allowed to see what we're told about it. And yet it's used politically to make or justify our actions in so many ways.
I had the same. I had a interesting. I left a comment on that video, that specific video, because I'd been to South Korea, and obviously the first thing I was asking them was all about what they knew of North Korea, and it was shrouded in exactly the same mystery that it's shrouded in for us, like exactly the same, and it's their neighbour. I'm like, well, that's weird.
Yes. Many of you South Korea and Russia, as in literally the camps in where they have the propaganda, and they have the various different modes of transport changed in order that it looks as if they are in South Korea. The people that work there at the camps believe they fully are in South Korea. They even do so with the army. They install small segments of so in order to create a completely false and alternate reality, right? It's actually really quite interesting in how propaganda is done. And when what Elijah was talking about earlier slightly, and I said maybe plug it in this way, and the plug-in for me was the power of the algorithm itself, right? Okay, you know, the idea of putting the words in our mouth by misrepresentation of what we actually know to be true via the anti-flat earthers, right? Okay, that's not us being controlled opposition. That's them being the controlled opposition, forcing us into a position where we effectively look as if we could be a form of opposition, or we are a form of opposition that they need in order to validate their own very existence. I believe maybe that's what you were trying to say, Elijah. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but again, it's the same thing within the South Korea thing, right? With the South Korea, where they have these camps, and they effectively have them there as workers, and they don't even realize that they're not in South Korea whatsoever, right? Okay, these people could literally walk away and be in a different country and actually, claim some form of, what would you call it? Humanitarian, like a humanitarian crisis. But they do so by keeping them inculcated into these positions, by attaching them back to the original regime by means of like their family and stuff like that. These nostalgic, elicited emotional responses that keep people towing along a line, right? It's these same emotional elicited responses that kept people towing narrative lines years ago when it came to the moon landings. It's the same model, time and time again, replayed and rehashed.
I like John's comment, which is to say that potentially we're a stopgap. We're just holding back the masses of a paradigm shift. Now, if you've read 1984, you'll appreciate that it's not beyond their mathematicians to make the stars close as opposed to far away, and being at war with Oceania tomorrow is perfectly acceptable, regardless of the fact that they were on our side today. Again, perfectly within the realms of a paradigm shift. Now, this might piss some people off, but when it comes to 100%. The Mandela effect, the best descriptions I've heard are when people describe it as just standard media practice. The fact that things can just automatically change completely, 180 degrees, that's fairly standard media practice when you think about it. But because it's out in the open and overt, people almost write it off. Oh yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about the Mandela effect. I'm talking about a silver leg. No. Mandela effect has been downplayed because it is just standard media practice, like in 1984, to just change a narrative completely. Yeah, my wife was asking me about how it's the case that we're in a generation where lots of Russian stuff is presented to us favourably. I'm like, yeah, it's probably done to just gaslight the old people. You know what I mean? The grandkids come round and start showing them the Russians that they're watching and talking about Russian this and that and the other. But anyway, the point is that John's attitude towards this was that there's going to be potentially a paradigm shift. But you can't have that happen too quickly because it descends into chaos and it's very difficult to control. Yes. So you've got to have it drip through until it's accepted as normal without any mainstream chaos caused in between. You just need it to slowly transition until it's eventually accepted as always being the case anyway. Now that's going to take some time to happen. And it means that if that is the case, which is, I think what lends credence to this is the prevalence being given to anti-flat earthers. Bear with me on this. So an anti-flat earther is standing in violation of the original globe claim in many, if not all, of their arguments that they have with us. When they're opposing a defeat of a globe argument that we've postulated, they will, like I say, directly contradict the original globe claim in order to challenge us. Now, that won't go unnoticed forever. It'll work for the complete dingbat idiots that are normie globe believers who might have found themselves stumbling across Simon Dan just insulting us and just get a surface-level idea that we're just idiots and then just leave because they're idiots themselves. Well, that can't last forever. There will be a decent enough percentage of people that look at the arguments that are coming their way and recognise that it doesn't work with the original rhetoric. In other words, although they might think they're helping themselves scramble back up that metaphorical hill to globe belief, they're not helping. They're not helping in the slightest. And although we think it's our duty to point out where they've stood in contradiction of globe faith, I often think to myself, that really isn't necessary. There's going to be enough people out there that aren't stupid, that can put two and two together, and will just recognise that the anti-flat earth rhetoric is extremely damaging to globe faith. And if that goes on to the next stage, I don't know what that may be, but just for the anti-flat earthers, yeah, like us, YouTube can just put a strike through your name instead of under it one day. And that day will come, right? Shocking. And then we'll see how hard you're prepared to work for your YouTube channel that's not getting promoted left, right, and centre. Anyway, there'll be a stage that goes beyond. And when it does, you know, number one, you'll have a strike through anti-flat Earth, but it will descend into further nonsense. You know, people undoing anti-flat Earth rhetoric that doesn't go with the globe and trying to correct that. And, you know, that next step will make it seem even more ludicrous to your average normie that stumbles across this stuff. So it's almost like we've been made surplus to requirements because the anti-flat earthers do such a good job of debunking the globe. But there's a symbiotic relationship. They wouldn't be doing that unless we were here.
And to be honest, it's like you just stated, Nathan, actually. In fact, it's probably better that it isn't us that goes along and shows the inconsistencies and how they debunk the globe themselves, because otherwise it will just, again, appear that it's us, the flat earthers, you know, calling into question, and it would actually reify the debunking actually of the globe by the anti-flat earthers. It would reify it as some form of an actual globe proof. It would give it some form of credibility, would it not? Because it's coming from our mouths, right? Our mouths, because apparently we have an agenda to disprove the globe. So in us disproving the globe that they are disproving, we could give credibility to those claims that are the actual disproval of the actual globe itself, if that makes sense.
The globe hasn't been proven, though.
No, I'm talking about in the narrative, in the story.
Oh, okay.
In the narrative and in the overall story of what Nathan's just outlined, right? Okay, if we are the ones that go to point out, right, the inconsistencies of them debunking their own globe, right, in the anti-flat earthers, that is, if it is us guys whose job it is not to go and point out the inconsistencies of the heliocentric model, of people like Simon Dan, right, and Bob the Science Guy, and these people, it would lend credibility to those claims that are actually debunking of the heliocentric model, because it would add a air of, oh, well, those guys have a bias because those guys have an agenda toward disproving the heliocentric model. So it's better for the public over time, realistically, to just pick up on it, even though it's going to seem more ludicrous and crazy as it goes along. It's better that we're not the ones that are the crazy. That would be us being the inadvertent sort of, game theory 101 type-esque, predictive programming type thing of us, because they expect us to do it, is my point. So if for us, there's a resistance that we need to fight inside of us. And me and Elijah have been talking about this recently. There's resistance in us that we need to fight against this want to debunk that which they have in their videos, the inconsistencies. And this is why, obviously, people like myself, even today, would have got told off for, let's say, bringing something up that necessarily doesn't even need to be to be debunked. Why do we need to go off into Narnia in the first place? Because by doing so, what do? We reify the idea that Narnia exists in the first place. They can make claims about Narnia, and in those claims in Narnia, we make them more, more, like I said, more valuable. We make them more real because we come from the position of the people that have an agenda to get rid of Narnia as for what it is. If they misunderstand how and why we have the claim that we're getting rid of Narnia because of the second law of thermodynamics violations, they don't understand that part, the antecedent to it, and all they see is the anti-flat earther, then we become the one that reifies even their own debunking of their own heliocentric model.
Now let's look at the last stage. So we've looked at all but the stage that I'm going to detail now. So it's a bit of a mix of Eli's assumption that we're controlled opposition, but still with the understanding that we're not the Flat Earth Society. What you require if you're going to maintain the heliocentric deception is a new layer of bullshit, a shiny, fresh layer of bullshit to put over the top, a new veneer.
Exactly.
And that new veneer needs to be written into the rhetoric with the overcomes for any problems already having been figured out. In other words, tie it all back down again. So in the respect that we're being, if you like, Eli, controlled, it could be the case that we're here because you need debate, and I mean literally that makes us tip of the spear in this respect, to work out how the new narrative for heliocentrism gets written. So how it incorporates, overcomes for any objections that might be new, and maybe this is a cyclical thing. You know, back in the 70s when you can get newspaper cuttings of similar people to ourselves doing similar things, maybe it was the same process being undertaken. That is to say, release it into the public, see who latches onto it, and see how they overcome the arguments, so we can put our best tacticians and mathematicians on overcoming their objections with a slightly new veneer on the narrative. And then we'll close down everything that's anti-globe and anti-globe, that would be anti-flat earth, all just gets shut down. And then we start again with a nice new veneer of heliocentrism with all new arguments buried into the libraries, the internet, wherever it needs to be. And then in 20 or 30 years, we'll do it all again.
Well, there's a problem with that, though, because we're not talking about belief with measurement. And if you can't measure a radius, there's no reason to believe you live on a sphere.
That's a problem that may need to be overcome. John?
How about the star spinning?
No, let's just stick with that. So what John's saying is, if it's the case that we are here to expose any glaring cracks in the heliocentric model that might be detrimental to the public, if they were to come across them, this would be one of them. So it may be the case, John, that we have exposed a glaring crack in terms of how it is claimed Earth is measured by way of dip angle to horizons to give you our values. There's a glaring problem in that claim. There's a glaring contradiction in the way he did it, considering he measured the mountain's height on a flat plane, but we'll leave that aside for one moment. Right? That's a crack. So therefore, watch this space, right? 21 months isn't a very long time. How did they fill that crack and then put a veneer over the top of it?
Well, Nathan, this is why I'm always talking about axioms and I'm talking about tangents all the time. And this is exactly why. Everything we just went through there and everything we just spoke about is because, again, and this is why, again, I talk about axioms, tangents, and I talk about the myth of methodology. Because if inside of that, they have a lot of, right, again, the widening of the narrowing, the widening of the narrow gate that would be the scientific method, along with the axioms, right? With these axioms, let's say the Big Bang, evolution, right? We have certain things that can be true in between them to fill in the gaps, these narrative storylines, okay? And they want to move along away from this idea that science proves things so that they're not labeled or, like you said, about adding a new shiny new argument to it all. And this is how they're going to do it. They're going to do it in order. They're going to say, right, we've taken away the scientific method, right? And they're going to do so slowly eking toward what you would call, I guess, a collective of the world, but toward these new technologies and new sciences and the rebranding of science itself into things like computer sciences, because people want these things. They're going to play on emotion, again, emotional response, and they're going to use it in that way to create the new arguments. Like I said, these tangents mean that there can be certain narratives fulfilled between the tangents, right? And in the same time, they can validate the new tangents that connect and intersect, right, with this lack of the method, because it's now a myth of method, right? And they can do so because it doesn't prove things, okay? They can do so quite cleanly. They've already set up the next phase. And that's what I guess you're saying, is they've already set up that new phase of how they can cover the new arguments and how they can cover the next part. But that's why it's when we go back to what John says.
Hold on, someone's trying to interrupt you. Go ahead, whoever that was.
Well, I was trying to interrupt, but then John also was trying to interrupt.
I can interrupt.
Just Arwin, please don't. Please. Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, I wanted to say, well, who was the one that made the point before crack? Was it John? Oh, because you can't change the measurement. Well, back then they didn't have a radius to contend with. It was just this. It was obviously something else, you know, and people still argued against it, however they did. And then to Crack's point about, well, the methodology behind all of this, well,
regardless of how they advance, there's always going to be a need for, I'll say, certain individuals to verify a claim. That's never going to go away.
Well, what I was going to say.
What was that?
Hold on, let's just hear John.
Or
Go ahead, John.
seemingly do so, really. They have to seem like they're providing some sort of evidence.
No. There are fundies.
Okay, Eli and
there are fundies
Eli and
that-
Owen, hold on. Hey, hold on. Don't get into the secondary wrangle dangle. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, it sounded to me like Crackmillan was describing bringing back the Dark Ages, where everything is just told to you and you accept it. There is no validation. None of that. It's just all a belief structure and you have to take it. Is that
Right.
what he was describing?
A proper housekeeping
Well, that's what we
question of
have
that
now.
time would be any evidence of axiom rotation?
Okay, well, let's just
We
throw
don't
this
have
out.
that now.
Hold on a second. Let's just throw it out to anybody who hasn't actually piped up, because there might be fair few people in the wings going by.
Nice one,
Everyone's keen
Owen.
to jump on top of each other and jump on top of me right now, whoever that was. So, what we're discussing is why we're here as flat earthers, why we were tolerated, and in some ways, certainly early on, we were promoted. Well, why would that be the case? You know, it can't just... These things don't tend to just be happening for no reason, and we've postulated plenty so far. Has anybody else got any other attitudes towards it further to we're controlled opposition, or we're here because, I don't know, all the things we've just discussed? Anybody else got anything they want to pipe in but hasn't had a chance so far?
Yeah.
Well, we all become our own controlled opposition, right? Once we manifest, we try to do something in a certain field, specialize. You always end up becoming your own controlled opposition by your own human flaws and the habit of dealing with things.
Speak for yourself. Go ahead, 10th man.
Yeah, I want to go back to make this point when someone brought up patriotism. Well, I know that people coming from communistic countries or socialist or Marxist, all one the same actually, but at different points. And they grew up thinking that was the way because they were born in that system. And then when they came, maybe because the parents fled and they looked at their country from outside their country, outside the program news of their country, and they experienced the freedom of a capitalistic system, say, some Western country, and they have real life experience to compare to what it was before to what it is now. They wake up and they realize, wait a minute, I was taught my whole life in that country because of the programming from
That's
that
not
country.
true.
And
That's
well,
not
can I
true.
finish before? Can I finish
That's not
before you say?
true. Sorry.
Excuse me, I'm in the middle of a conversation here. You can
He's saying
always
sorry.
pipe up afterwards.
Okay, he's saying sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear him say sorry as I kept talking. So
Sorry.
the point. Okay, I just lost my whole train of thought there. Thanks.
You're talking about people
You were
coming from
talking about
communistic
how-
countries. Let me just
People-
remind him. Hello.
Socialism.
Let's just let him get his point back. So he was talking about people leaving and finding a bit more freedom in a Western world society. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah. So the point is, when more information comes your way and you're more educated, and you yourself are first person to that, you tend to get the best results instead of someone else saying, "Oh, this is the way it is in this country," or "This is the way it is in that country," and you've never been there. So now let's go from there to now. So how am I making this connection? Well, we started asking questions that Chocolate and I and others have had as a kid. They got ignored. Then all of a sudden, 2015, there's it's a hot topic. Oh my gosh, this is stuff I was bringing up when I was a kid and got shut down. This is great. I've always had a feeling that they were lying to me. Blah blah blah. So now here we are talking about how do we fit in that cog? Are we a controlled opposition or all this? How about just it's life, and there are liars, and certain people who, at least one person said earlier, when you talk to them, they're not interested in finding the truth. But then there's other types of people that say, you know what, you got a point. I'm going to check that out. So it depends on the person and the level of programming, I guess, that person has had. But there's some people who are just true alpha males. And then there's some people who are true beta males. And there's not a way you could say it's always that way. But for the most part, you can tell who's who based on the way they approach things and the way they deep dive into, say, research or something, or how they're going to put up with an overbearing boss. Most people just take it. Whereas when I was younger, I was still an alpha male. I still am now. And I remember I didn't like anyone trying to put control on me. So there's a lot of this that's just normal. So I don't know if we can sit here and say that there's a controlled opposition for more than the obvious, because I feel a lot of freedom in what I'm doing right now.
Agreed. I that's how I feel. It's just down to me how I want to perceive these things. Go ahead, Sasha. Go ahead.
I disagree only with that point when you say people in socialistic, in communistic countries, they had I don't know, whatever regime, blah blah blah, and then they felt the freedom when they find out the capitalism and democracy and blah blah blah, whatever. That's wrong.
Why is it wrong?
Because I lived in socialism, and I had more freedom in that time that you had, man.
But I lived in a Muslim country, and I know the difference of not living in one.
Okay, I lived in one socialistic country, and I had more freedom than anybody else had in America in that time.
That's fine. You can tell that to the millions who don't feel that way.
Bullshit.
Okay, okay. Look, you guys are going to have to agree to disagree. You're clearly never going to agree.
You are telling me that my life is bullshit.
No, we're not saying that. Stop. No, he's not saying that. Stop. Everyone stop. Hello. I know, Owen. Just chime in as well when I'm trying to gain control of everybody. Thank you very much. No, look, you've obviously got different personal viewpoints on it, and you are never going to agree on this. So at this stage, I beg of you, I implore you to just agree to disagree. You're never going to agree on this.
Maybe not.
They wouldn't have to, as long as you just realize.
Arwin. Oh, God.
Arvin, listen.
I am talking to 10th Man and Sasha.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're right, Nathan, in the sense, because if I speak about Soviet Union, Bulgaria, Dutch Democratic Republic, so whatever East Bloc, but I'm speaking on one country who was not in East Bloc, I'm sorry, and there was no criminal, there was not one fucking criminal thing happened, you know, killing, I'm now exaggerating how to say, it was the crimes, but it was not so many crimes. Like to kill people, to kill one guy on the street, that was news.
So why you leave there?
Do you understand me?
So
what is the question?
Can I thought it was.
Then why do you leave?
I'm saying only that people, some people, I don't know. I feel like this. I can tell you. I don't know. All West people. I want that socialism, what I had in the 80s, if it's possible, you know. That is my opinion, you know. But it's not only me. If you ask other people from Yugoslavia, they live very well. They had all freedom what they had all the time. They was not suppressed by I don't know, by regime.
You can, but, you know, I'm 14% Yugoslavian, and I experienced great oppression. So
that's fine. Here, let me interject something. I have no problem with what he's saying, and I don't have a problem leaving it where it's at. I lived in Spain for almost 2 years, and one of my friends that I met there was a doctor, and he explained to me that in the days of Franco, you can have a convertible, you could leave your wallet and keys in the car. No one would dare touch it. He says, but today it's different.
No, but we cannot compare with Franco. Franco was killing people. Sorry, man. But that was fascism, and you're comparing fascism with some countries. But
I don't. You gotta wait.
Let him finish his freaking point.
Calm down, Neil. The point is, I said, whether it's patriotism, communism, socialism, capitalism, fascism, it doesn't matter. The point is the rules were set and they were quickly dealt with. Right now, you do something like in California, you could steal almost $1,000, just shy, 1 penny less, and you don't face any jail time because the governor said, and you can do that. So we got videos of people walking in the stores and filling shopping carts and then just walking out, and you see the store employees doing nothing. And I have firsthand information of people that work in such stores who say the management said, don't call the cops and don't do anything. Well, that's a broken system. Whereas in fascism, Franco, what he was trying to say is that they had so much fear of stealing because the retribution was quick that no one stole. I don't have a problem with that. That wasn't my point.
Germany. In Germany, it's the same. Like, there was no crime because you die.
Yeah, there was swift punishment for it.
But y'all,
no, people
y'all are
were
talking
helping
about a
each other.
understanding of freedom.
Sasha, let me round off with you before everybody jumps in. I have no problem with your I don't have any problem with your personal experience of where you came from. I'm not even arguing that, so I'm at peace with you.
I'm how to say, I only wanted to point out only that point. I don't have anything against your point about controlling,
It's just the generalization that socialism or socialist-like countries are bad is not right.
Correct, because any form of government, any form, is only as good or bad as the people that run it. And the people that are subjected to it, right?
Socialism
can I finish?
Bloody hell, Neil.
Socialism only works if everybody works with it. Everybody actually takes part in the spirit of it.
And if
they don't, if they exploit it.
God, hello. Can you guys not hear Owen? Hello?
Hold on, I said shit the whole show, all right? In a tiny country, that shit works. America ain't gonna work.
Yeah, but why? Nothing works in America because it's always corrupted.
Is American capitalism actually working? Would you call this working?
It's plutocracy. Doesn't matter what.
Because what people aren't getting what Neil's saying is that you would have to take away individualistic ideals and thought and the idea of people wanting to make their own self choices, which is that some people might not want to choose to go along with a system that needs mass, and I say mass, effectively mass compliance, as was stated by Arwen and admitted by Arwen's own mouth, which is that mass amount of people would have to go along with it. So,
sorry to interrupt, but we've got a big issue with free speech at the moment, right?
We do.
And that's in our Western cultures, right? A lot of censorship.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that would be the bleeding forth of very similar political systems to socialism. For instance, the United Kingdom. I would say the United Kingdom is not a free market capitalist society exactly. I would say that it's a blend in between socialism and capitalism. The Overton window, in fact, makes us believe for some reason that we have a right and a left wing in the United Kingdom, when I would say the right-wing conservative government in the United Kingdom would be no more right-wing than, let's say, the right-wing what would be considered right-wing in Switzerland, when actually that we know is a completely left-wing organization. So, unfortunately, I'm not saying the cause of a removal away from, let's say, freedom of speech would be caused by either. I would say it would be a collective thing of globalism, of wanting to control the narrative across the whole earth. This is a bigger issue overall of the fact of what we're living in at the moment, which is people wish to control the narrative of the very place that we live in, let alone in which the ways we govern ourselves, right? We've moved away from the king systems. We've moved toward the systems of, forms of representatives of kings with bodies of men beneath them that are almost like barons, right? And these barons that actually hold absolutely sometimes absolutely no real assets or anything of the such, no real vested interest in the economy at all when they make these decisions. This is a dangerous thing, and this is what we see actually, in fact, when we go toward a more socialistic and more communistic thing as well, is that we end up with oligarchs that have lots of control of lots of wealth and lots of assets, and then thus the people behind that, the people, the actual civilianship, have to then apparently make decisions, or do they make decisions at all? Or is it just that they pander to the oligarchs that own the majority of the actual assets in order that they might buddy up to them, in order that they might receive a bigger slice of the pie? No one would really know. Again, a mass compliance system of a countrywide, countrywide, right, is completely different. America has got massive different ideas and ideals as a melting pot of cultures, and people that have come from countries very similar to which of what you're explaining, Arwen, right? So people are going to be resistant.
The problem about communism is that when it corrupts, it turns to feudalism. That's exactly what happens.
I agree.
Become worshipped, like you said, like barons, and then everybody just has to become their slaves because the barons can just do this, and a person and their entire family is screwed because of the way things are set up. And that's basically feudalism. That's what it does turn into once it corrupts.
Well, that's why you don't see Jack Ma anymore. And communism failed because you shouldn't have billionaires in China. So what they've done is they realized that it doesn't work. And so they bring a little bit of capitalism, but they still retain the control, and they allow billionaires to exist. On our end of the deal,
it's a two-way tandem system. You're correct.
Right. But that's
the question we would then need to ask you, Arwen, would be what would stop it from being corrupted?
Wow. On our end of the deal in America, it's so corrupted that the people can vote and have 70% margin, and the court system says it's racist. So we are not running under the Constitution as a republic anymore. We have been infiltrated. The politicians have been bought. The judge seats have been bought. It's not a true capitalistic system because the criminals are the banks now.
I object to this entire line.
It's a plutocracy. It's a plutocracy now, America.
I object.
Well, no, I want to ask Arwen one question. If you say it turns to what you described as feudalism, right? Corruption of communism, and then it goes into feudalism. You would then need, if you're going to assert that communism is okay as long as there's no corruption toward the idea of feudalism, you would need the antidote in which to apply in order to stop it from going toward feudalism. Do you have that antidote?
No, it's a chronic problem because there always has to be, for delegation, some sort of leadership. That leadership must have power or they can't legally do anything. Once they have it, you have the Emperor Palpatine effect. And then they always turn predatory. And then they take control of the system. Like they tame the entire thing. And then it corrupts. And you can't uncorrupt it once that happens unless you take them down. Like really punish them.
But this all started with the idea of improved freedom. I think Nathan covered that in the show, that's subjective. This is a subjective issue. I don't think it's helpful to argue politics.
I agree. Plus, Arwen's right. It all gets very gay towards the end. There's lightning fingers. Nobody likes it.
Okay.
Did you just say lightning?
I think it's a valuable thing to discuss.
Sorry, sometimes Nathan, you come up with the funniest things. What did you say?
I don't know what you're talking about. It was Arwen's point.
Did you say
Palpatine effect?
No. Yeah, no, but it's because you said, don't worry. So you said lightning fingers, and then I saw Palpatine, but I didn't hear Arwen say Palpatine. Sorry. That was funny.
I did. Palpatine effect. It's like you have to appoint some kind of a controller over the power to do what they're tasked to do. But if they then sneakily move around that task and use the power to take control, then you get a Palpatine, then you get an Emperor, and everybody's screwed.
Right. And metaphorically...
Nathan, how are you? 40%. How are you? 40%. Yugoslavian.
Australian?
No, you said that you're 40% Yugoslavian.
That's
Last
correct.
week he was 14% black.
That's correct also.
Yeah, the Palpatine effect gets solved real quick. I had it 2 weeks ago, but I went to the chiropractor.
Nathan is suffering from DNA entropy.
Anyway, the metaphor wrapped up in Arwen's description would mean that the anti-flat earthers are a bit like Darth Vader. So they're given seemingly huge amounts of power, but ultimately they're left in tremendous amounts of pain permanently.
Yeah, they're not our father, though.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, that was quite good.
You just need to look in the right direction, Arwen.
So now that John's drawn a line under the political discussion, are we going to segue back onto flat Earth or not?
Well, I was going to relate it back to the emotional response that anti-flat earthers have to the idea, or to the measurements of Earth being flat. You know, it's almost like a gut reaction, and you've seen a little bit of that in the political discussion that was going on. You know, there's a lot of emotion tied up with concepts. But if you're just talking about measurements, it's measurably flat.
Right, well, whether you're talking about measurements or politically relevant statistics, you know, the patterns are the same. Sorry, Chocolate.
I still say they should be called anti-globers.
Well, based on what
they got a problem with their own damn globe model.
Yeah,
they gotta work that out before they even come to us. So I don't even really like calling them anti-flat earthers. They're anti-globers.
They're worse than that, Chocolate. From what I hear, they don't have a baseline for a triangle anymore.
Yeah.
Refracted.
That's a thing.
We should call them helio-Pharisees.
Helio what?
Helio-Pharisees.
Whatever you're doing now,
Because they are badly interpreting their own religion, right? They think they got the heliocentrism. They're making it their own. They're not actually following the guidelines, like Pharisees.
That's very sad to see.
I just need to tell Chocolate something.
Axiom rotation.
So I just need to tell Chocolate something. Let's try 5 times maybe. So that whatever you said last, Chocolate, you didn't have any of that dice rolling around in a cup sound. So I don't know if what you did last time different to what you did in the live show, but there wasn't any of that noise that you normally make.
Oh, well, I'm sitting still now, as opposed to I was walking around before.
Oh, okay, fair enough. It's just handling noise because you can't help that if it's dangling down and you're moving around. Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
Oh.
I'd
Yeah,
just like to point
my
out
whole point. No, I'm sorry, Adam. Go ahead.
It's only a quickie, Choc, thanks. Just, I think we all missed a very highbrow pun there from 10 Firm.
We did.
Thank you, Adam.
What? Which one?
We
It's
missed it.
just sad to see Arwen's point.
Sadducees.
I heard it.
I still don't hear it. What?
I was focusing on Arwen's
I'm glad it was explained. I'd have never got that.
one with
That would
Crapzilla, axiom rotation.
have gone straight over my head 10th if it hadn't been explained, to be fair.
It did.
Can you say it again? I still don't got it.
Sadducees.
Sadducees?
Sadducees.
The Pharisees and the Sadducees.
Oh, shit. Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, I definitely didn't see that.
Wow.
I really only know the Pharisees, like the name. The other one, I always forget those.
Yeah, but Owen, you had a good one with the axiom rotation. I like that one. That was good.
You're welcome.
So, again, am I bugging that I feel like these clowns that we call anti-flat earthers should be called anti-globers? Because, again, it's their own globe model that they're going against. They're not. They have to, like, again, they have to work that out before they even get to the flat Earth level.
They still believe
It's
they're on a globe.
complicated, chocolate.
That's what I'm saying. They still believe they're on a globe, but they're going against the very claims that the globe make.
Right.
So they're anti-globe. They're not really anti-flat Earth, though.
Yeah, but they're anti-globe, but they think they are anti-flat Earth. You see?
There you go.
But they're effectively anti-globe. You're correct. But I think that anti-flat Earther would suit them better because they'd be able to accept that title.
Because all right, so a glober says the Earth's spinning underneath objects, right? Coriolis, forest, Earth base, Coriolis, all of that, right?
Yes.
The anti-flat Earther, right, says that the Earth and the atmosphere move in lockstep, right? But he still believes he's on a globe. He's just going against the claim that the globe side, his side, makes. So he's anti-globe at that point. He's not anti-flat Earth.
No, he's going against what he knows to be better, or knows to be true. He's going against what he knows to be true. So he knows something, but he still wants to believe something.
Well, he's going with what he knows is true, because the only reason he's saying that is because he knows that we can't see, there's no observed Earth-based Coriolis. So they have to pretend that, oh, it's there, it exists, we just don't see it because this nonsense, the atmosphere and the Earth are moving lockstep together, right? But he still thinks it's a globe.
Right. He's not anti-globe. He's anti-flat Earth at that point because he's denying the reality.
What claim is flat Earth making?
Let me try and shed some light on this. Let me just try and shed some light on this. So it's because they've got tunnel vision at this point. They've rolled down the hill. They've seen what we see and show. So then they get tunnel vision. So they are definitely anti-flat Earth, chocolate, because they're attacking what we say. So we say that we should see drift. Now, if we don't qualify that as when I say we, I mean the nation at large believes they're on a sphere, and as such, we should see Earth turning underneath stuff. But because it doesn't come with that string of qualifications, it's just, we should see Earth turning underneath, and we don't. They hear that and go, the flat earther is claiming we should see drift and we don't. So I'm going to attack the claim that we should see drift and we don't. So they say we shouldn't see drift because they're attacking the claim that the flat earther's making. But they've got such narrow vision, they don't realise that when they say that, they're ultimately debunking the globe claim. But they haven't recognised that. They're just attacking us because they've got tunnel vision. It's focused in our direction. They're definitely anti-flat Earth. And inadvertently, they debunk the globe when they attack us with tunnel vision. They just hear us making a claim and want to attack that, even though by doing so, they're attacking the globe as well.
So we're calling them that because of, not because of what they say, but because of the reason they say it, because we're the reason they're saying it.
Yes, exactly.
That's what you mean.
It's symbiotic. But for the fact that we have debunked the globe claim, there wouldn't be a necessity to debunk the debunking of the globe claim. But when they do the debunking of the globe claim, they miss the fact that they're also debunking the original globe claim that we have debunked in the first place.
All right.
So, Chocolate, you know what's funny, right? The moment you talk about this, Akuma comes in the chat and tries to correct us again. So he must feel offended. Akuma, are you offended? Something we said?
You can get my name right at least.
Akumu. Are you offended?
Akuma Matata.
Are you offended?
I'm not offended.
Guys, can you just clear the airwaves from Moo virus?
What?
Virus.
That was funny.
You're not offended?
I just said no like 3 times.
Okay, so we don't, we misrepresent the globe. That's what you said, right?
Yeah. I didn't really just say that word for word, but I guess you can imply that.
Okay, so the Earth doesn't turn underneath stuff. Is that it? Is that misrepresenting it?
That's not what Coriolis is, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So what is it then? So what is it?
Well, what is
No.
Coriolis virus?
The apparent deviation is that's caused by the Earth's rotation.
Oh.
Are we really going to go through this with him?
Oh, so by the Earth moving.
Look, he's defined it. He
What'd
said
you
it's
say,
the
Ram?
apparent deviation caused by Earth's rotation. So it's the apparent deviation of a hot air balloon caused by Earth's rotation, right, Virus?
No.
Well, then it doesn't have that happening then. So it's defined by you as the apparent deviation caused by Earth's rotation. And I ask, so how much apparent deviation caused by Earth's rotation will we see in a hot air balloon? And there isn't any. That's the end of the argument. Globe's claiming we're going to see apparent deviation, and we don't.
It doesn't claim it in a hot air balloon.
Sorry, it claims it. It claims apparent deviation.
Anything?
Not in a hot air balloon.
Sorry.
Anything.
Sorry, citation, please.
Hold on, Chocolate read out
Citation
anything.
from Virus that specifically excludes a hot air balloon from Coriolis deflection. Because it's now the third time I have gone through Coriolis effect on a roundabout where I let go of a balloon and from my position underneath the balloon on a roundabout, it will appear to take a curved path as it goes upwards because I'm spinning underneath it. That's the description you gave by definition, used by example with an hot air balloon replaced with a helium balloon and earth turn replaced with a turning roundabout. Now, if I'm turning under a hot air balloon or turning underneath a helium balloon, I'm going to see apparent deflection as you defined. Now, when we point out there isn't any on Earth, but there would be on a turning roundabout, you say apparently it shouldn't happen to hot air balloons. Now you need to cite it where it says Earth won't show apparent deflection in hot air balloons. Citation, go.
Just have Chocolate read his citation.
Pardon?
Yeah, just have Chocolate read his citation.
The citation from ThoughtCo describes Earth turning underneath to cause apparent deflection precisely as you just defined. It also
There's
details
also
it in
something
things
else
like
to say.
aeroplanes. So, what's the problem? You're asking Chocolate to cite what the globe actually claims, and you have already defined apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. How much apparent deflection is there in a hot air balloon? None.
Actually, the
We wouldn't
citation says
expect it.
anything.
Sorry, don't tell me what you wouldn't expect to see when you've just told us we'd expect to see apparent deflection. Your definition
I
said
didn't
we'd
understand.
expect to see apparent deflection. Now you're telling me we wouldn't expect to see apparent deflection.
Not in a balloon.
Sorry, where's your citation that says that if I'm turning on a roundabout under a balloon, it won't deviate? Because that's nonsense.
It's in Chocolate citation.
Sorry, why are you asking me to get Chocolate to cite something? I've asked you to cite your claim that the globe won't turn underneath a hot air balloon, when you've specifically claimed that the Coriolis is apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. So if there's apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation, how much in a hot air balloon? None. Your response, we wouldn't expect to see what? The defined apparent deflection you defined earlier. So you're double speaking. You tell us it's apparent deflection we'll see. We ask where we'll see it, and because we don't, you say we won't expect to see it.
Okay, do you...
Is that a pain in the back of your head, that little chuckle? I'll summarise. Again, Earth is claimed to show apparent deflection. That's the hot air balloon seeming to drift underneath when I observe it on a roundabout. That's Coriolis effect. Release the balloon as you're spinning and it looks like it's taking a corkscrew motion. Why? Because you're turning beneath it. That's apparent deflection because it's only going straight up. Well, that effect is supposed to happen on Earth. You detailed it. Until we ask where we'll see it in a balloon, and then you go on to double speak and tell us how we won't expect to see it.
You do know a definition don't explain how it works, right?
Sorry, your definition was the apparent deflection we're expecting to see. Okay. So we're expecting to see apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation in a balloon. And then you go on to tell us how we won't expect to see that. The very thing you've defined we're going to expect to see, you're now telling us how we won't expect to see it in a balloon. Why? Because we don't. So the globe says we'll see it, and we don't. Enter anti-flat earther to tell us how we wouldn't expect to see apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. So he's inadvertently debunking the globe claim after being the very person to define it.
Nathan, may I please share something here? Because Virus says from the onset, that we are misrepresenting the globe claims. Yet it is he, Virus, who's misrepresenting the globe claims. Last week he said he can see the horizon, a misrepresentation that everything is refracted. And right now he's misrepresenting Earth-based Coriolis. So he's just projecting.
I'm not projecting shit.
Sorry, you said we would expect to see deflection caused by Earth's rotation. I ask how much in a hot air balloon. You go on to tell us we're not expecting to see deflection caused by Earth's rotation. The very opposite of what you defined as the effect.
Okay, should we go to the math? I mean, that would that help you?
What makes balloons exempt from this effect?
They're not. If I release a balloon whilst turning underneath it, it'll take a corkscrew motion as it goes upwards. Now that same exact effect is claimed to happen on Earth. Virus just defined it. Apparent deflection. That's what the motion of the balloon I'm describing when I look at it underneath it, turning on a roundabout. It's called Coriolis effect. He's told us we'll see that effect. It's the apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. So he's defined it. Earth claims we'll see apparent, that means we'll see it, deflection. How much in a balloon? None! So then he goes on to tell us that we're misrepresenting the globe. He's the one who's defined that we're going to see deflection until we don't see any. And then he goes on to define how we're not going to see this apparent deflection in a balloon. But yet we're misrepresenting the globe, you double-speaking fundy? No.
And he wants me to read a citation that debunks his own claim.
Yeah.
Is that what you want me to do, Virus? You want me to read a citation that debunks your own claim? Okay, I got you. Yeah, I got you. Causes of the Coriolis effect. The main cause of the Coriolis effect is the Earth's rotation. As the Earth spins in a counterclockwise direction on its axis, pay attention to this next word, Virus, very carefully. Anything flying or flowing over a long distance above its surface is deflected. This occurs because as something moves freely above the Earth's surface, the Earth moves east under the object at a faster speed.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Chocolate. So,
thank you, Chocolate.
Thank you. So, according to the citation you begged to have read out by Chocolate, anything that's not attached to Earth will experience deflection. Therefore, balloon not exempt. How much deflection do we see in a balloon as Earth turns underneath it? None. Earth isn't turning underneath as claimed by the globe.
Hey, Nathan, did you
They suck my balls.
distance? Flowing or flying over a long distance?
Sorry, a hot air balloon is travelling up, and there's no deflection as Earth turns underneath it. That's the end of the claim that Earth has Coriolis. We've just read out your globe claim you demanded was read out, and it says anything moving freely will exhibit deflection. So therefore, the globe claims we'll see deflection in a hot air balloon because it's moving freely above Earth's surface. How much deflection do we see? As per the claim the globe makes, none. Ergo, we do not see the apparent deflection the globe claims we'll see, Virus. Very simple. We don't see the deflection claimed we'll see. The balloon isn't experiencing deflection from the ground because we're turning underneath it. We're not turning underneath it. It's not deflecting, but the globe says it will. It just doesn't. Now try again to tell me that we're misrepresenting the globe, or that we wouldn't expect to see the very definition of the claim. That would be that we will see deflection in a hot air balloon because it's not attached, and Earth's going to turn underneath it. We just don't see that, Virus.
Show me anything. Show me anything demonstrating
Anything that is flowing or flying over a long distance.
Oh, right. Well, I would say going up anything more than a couple of centimetres is a long distance. It depends on what you're using as your perspective or scale. I mean, a long distance is very vague now, isn't it? Well, I'm going to say this balloon's going to go a very long distance up into the air. Therefore, we're definitely going to see Earth turning underneath it, aren't we? How much do we see Earth turning under balloons, ladies and gentlemen?
0.
You don't need to go
0.
Right, it's not flowing or flying over a long.
Oh, I see a balloon's not flying.
Not over a long distance.
Oh, really? Cognitive dissonance, dickhead? You think a balloon's not flying up a long distance? I say it is. You're just stupid. You're telling me it's not flying, a hot air balloon, because Earth's not turning underneath it.
What?
Yeah, you're telling me a balloon's not flying.
Long distance.
Oh, a long distance. Yeah, I'm going to say it's going to go a very long distance. Yeah, definitely up a very long distance.
Traveling that fast over land.
Sorry, is this your best rebuttal? That when a balloon goes up into the air and flies, it's not going to have Earth turning underneath because it's not quote unquote a long distance?
Did he just add fast?
That maybe you guys can
did he say
read
not?
if you guys will let me speak. I'm posting a screenshot in the chat, right? Because obviously anyone can look up what distance hot air balloons travel. And it's in general, the balloon will fly a distance between 5 and 10 miles.
Like yeah, fair enough, Elijah. But
I could take him even further with this and destroy him completely on this if he wants.
So far his rebuttal is they don't fly a long distance.
The citation said it.
Okay, Akuma, what distance is it then that is needed? And why is it distance that is needed? What is the reason given? Please do go there with me right now.
Why?
Go on.
Before he does, where did chocolate be?
Sorry, regardless. Earth isn't turning under this hot air balloon. So what, by qualification, if we manage to qualify it as a short distance, it shouldn't happen? No, it should. The distance makes absolutely no difference to whether or not you'll observe this effect or not. The distance is irrelevant.
But right, so does Akuma even understand the claim as to why it's long distance?
Hang on. Yes. First of all,
what is it then, Akuma?
Oh my God.
Let's test your globe acumen.
So I've just tried to wrap that up. As in, who cares? The distance is irrelevant?
I'd like to point out, Chocolate never read from the citation the word long distance. Why is Akuma putting it in there?
Conservation of momentum argument.
Guys, in Discord.
It did, Ted.
Let me hear it again.
What was that?
You want to hear something?
I'll have Chocolate read it again. And you've already cited 5-10 miles. So let's see what it means. Instead of Okumo saying that it means what he wants it to mean.
Who
said 5 or 10 miles?
The citation?
Yeah, just read the citation again, because the one thing that we have in common is that we are saying that the globe model says that the Earth is rotating. And your citation says that anything off the Earth, go on and read it, and we'll see what context it means.
Yeah. It says, as the Earth spins in a counterclockwise direction on its axis, anything flying or flowing over a long distance above the surface is deflected. This occurs because as something moves freely above the Earth's surface, the Earth moves east under the object at a faster speed.
All right, what context do you see that long distance there, Virus? Because I see it totally the way it's saying it. How are you saying?
When he literally said anything flying or flowing over long distances. When he literally said that, that's what I got from it. And also the part when he said the Earth is rotating at a faster speed. That lets you know speed has something to do with it. I mean, that's it's right there.
Yeah, it's okay. Ukuma, after I'll take you through it.
Hold on. How far does a balloon go? Sorry, how far does a balloon go? Hello?
Try it, bro.
How far in miles?
It depends also on your speed as well.
Hello?
Too. So,
How far does a balloon
hold
travel?
on, let me finish.
You've already made your claim. Apparently, we won't see deflection in a balloon because it's not travelling a, quote, long distance. How far does a balloon travel?
Yeah, but now he's saying it's speed as well.
We're addressing his rebuttal. Why can't he shut up while we actually address his rebuttal? Apparently, even though it's claimed that items moving freely over a turning Earth will show deflection, he's saying it also says long distance, and a balloon isn't travelling a quote-unquote long distance. So fine. Apparently, if it's not a quote-unquote long distance, no deflection. I mean, that violates how Coriolis is defined, but nevertheless, that's his rebuttal. I want to address it. So, how far does a balloon travel?
Not sure. Very, very slowly in whatever direction it chooses to go in.
Distance. Do you know the distance a balloon travels? You said it wasn't a long distance.
They could travel a long distance.
So, anything travelling a long distance will be affected by Earth turning underneath it. How much does Earth turn under the balloon as it travels a long distance, Virus?
What defines
what latitude?
Are you deaf? Do you need the question repeating?
What latitude are you on?
Sorry, it doesn't specifically say anything about latitude. It merely says freely moving object. Now, we've qualified long distance. Why isn't it you aren't answering me? So, your rebuttal was it's not moving a long distance. Now we've established by you, as you fundy mute the crap out of me, that it is going to be happily defined as a long distance. You said they do travel long distances. So therefore, given that it does travel long distance, contrary to your recent rebuttal we're now addressing, how much does Earth turn underneath a balloon when it travels a quote-unquote long distance, Virus?
I need more information. What latitude are you at?
Why? Your response was it wasn't travelling a long distance.
Because it is latitude based.
No, it's not. So if I release a balloon off a roundabout and observe the Coriolis deflection in the balloon, I need to know what part of the roundabout I'm observing it from in terms of the roundabout's latitude, or will it just take a corkscrew motion as it goes up? It has sod all to do with latitude and everything to do with you turning underneath it. So how much are we going to turn underneath this hot air balloon as it traverses a long distance?
There is no corkscrew motion like that with Coriolis.
So we're not seeing the apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation then?
No, I didn't say that. I said
you just said there won't be a corkscrewing motion. Well, that was analogous to me being under a balloon on a roundabout, but it's akin to your defined apparent deflection. So we won't see the apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation under a balloon then?
Not under a balloon that's just going...
Oh, right, so there's no apparent deflection as the balloon moves freely above Earth over a long distance then, as defined. So the definition that is claimed to occur on Earth is deflection, and we won't see any under a balloon.
It's not moving a long distance. It's going...
Oh, really? We're back to that old shite? We just covered that. We just covered that.
We're going straight
Yo, circle jerking asshole. Did you just have slight amnesia for the last 3 minutes?
No.
Well, we just covered your long distance rebuttal, didn't we? Do you need to go on mute? Do you need to be sat down and shut up? We just covered your stupid rebuttal, you dumb shit.
No, you didn't.
Oh, we didn't just cover what was and wasn't a long distance and reach the point where you said that, yes, balloons do travel over a long distance. We didn't do that. You have just experienced amnesia, you circle-jerking fundy, who's just in appreciation of the fact that Earth claims apparent deflection as Earth rotates underneath, and yet Earth is not rotating underneath hot air balloons as they move freely and travel long distances. That's right, Virus, that doesn't happen. But the globe claims it will, it just doesn't. Maybe we should go back to it's not moving a long distance for a third time because you have amnesia again.
Okay. What's the measurement?
Sorry, why are you asking me something? You claimed we shouldn't expect to see balloons. Then you told us to get a citation that said we would. Then you said it wasn't a long enough distance and conceded it is travelling long distances and can. And now we're going to ask questions of us. Your globe claim that we will see apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation, as you stated, does not happen, Virus.
I'll take it.
Not in a balloon. If you could tell me what are the
Not in a balloon? Why not? Your citation you demanded we read out said it would.
What's the unit?
Why are you asking me something?
Because you know Coriolis.
Your citation said it would.
If you know Coriolis.
Why are you telling me about what I know? I do know Coriolis. You're just going to ad hom me? Your claim that we will see apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation does not happen in a balloon in spite of the fact it meeting all the criteria. We do understand Coriolis. Don't ad hom me.
Okay, then answer my question.
I'm not being asked a question. I'm pointing out that your initial claim fails. Your initial claim being we'll see apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. And then I ask where we'll see it in a balloon, and we won't.
What's the units used?
Why are you asking me something about the units I use? It's your claim. You laid it out, apparent deflection. So it's your units of deflection we don't see. What units of the deflection we're not seeing in a balloon? The units would be at 0, shithead. You said we'd see deflection, we don't see it in a balloon. Now you want to talk about the units of something we don't see, but the globe claims we will?
It's a point. Yeah.
It's a point about how many units we won't see. We're not seeing anything, shithead. You want to measure that? Hello, shithead. You're going to ask me about the units of deflection we're not seeing? It's 0. We're not seeing the globe claim of deflection under a hot air balloon. So it's 0 units, shithead.
Okay, 0 what units?
Coriolis, deflection the globe claims we'll see. You said it's the apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. There isn't any.
Any of what?
Deflection you said we'd see caused by Earth's rotation.
Speaking in terms of science, what unit?
Sorry, your unit of deflection that we don't see in a hot air balloon, that's the 5th time.
Which is what?
What, your unit of deflection we don't see in a hot air balloon? Why are you asking me?
Deflection, which is
your deflection claim that we don't see. Your globe claim of deflection caused by Earth's rotation that we don't see. You're going to quiz me on my units for your claim of deflection caused by Earth's rotation that we don't see. You're going to quiz me about that, are you, shithead?
What units does the globe...
What, the claim that you're making needs me quizzing about your units of deflection that we don't see?
Point. There's a point.
A point that we don't see any deflection and you want the units for the deflection we don't see in a balloon?
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, what, we don't see any deflection in the balloon. So regardless of what the units, we're going to measure this lack of deflection, 0 deflection. It's not expected to seen as deflecting, right, Virus? Definitely no units to measure then. The globe says we'll see Coriolis deflection. Apparently, we'll see it. Well, apparently would mean we've got something to measure. You're saying there isn't any. Who gives a crap about the units? We're not seeing anything.
What's the units, Nathan?
Of deflection we don't see in a hot air balloon.
Stop repeating yourself, man.
Oh, well, you're asking me about the deflection you claimed. It's your claim.
So what is it?
So why are you asking me about the units of measurement in your claim of deflection caused by Earth's rotation that we do not see?
Why are you asking us about...
Sorry, let's just summarise. This shithead is going to continue to ask me about units of measurement for his claim that failed. Your claim. Apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. I ask how much in a balloon. None is the answer. Now he wants to know the units of how much we don't see of the globe's claim of deflection. That's what he wants now.
I want to know if you know the units.
Yeah. The units of the deflection measure that we haven't got in a balloon. It's 0 regardless of what the units are.
So what units is 0 then?
The units of deflection that you claimed we'd see on a globe of apparent deflection. Why are you asking me about a unit of measure for something you said we'd see but we don't?
Yeah, because I want to know.
Yeah, because you need to obfuscate away from your failure. Globe claims we'll see apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. You defined it at the start. I'd like you to do that again.
I think you're afraid of the point.
I think you'd like to define your claim again, or maybe you're a coward and would rather reverse the burden of proof indefinitely.
Okay, my claim is Nathan does not know.
No, not an ad hominem attack either about Nathan. You claimed apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. Are you scared of your own claim now?
No.
Well, then repeat it.
Because you don't know the units.
No, not my units. Your claim that you're now scared to repeat.
If you knew the units, you could...
Sorry, units of your claim. I don't know your claim. It's not my claim. It's yours. Why would I know your claim of your units? It's your claim. Going to continually reverse this burden of proof after your failure to prove your apparent deflection you were claiming, and now are now running from claiming again because we don't see it in a hot air balloon.
You claim to know Corey?
Sorry, don't tell me what I've claimed. We don't have anything to measure. There's nothing to see in a hot air balloon. I'm not claiming anything. You started off by claiming there'd be apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. There isn't. Now you want to quiz me on my units? I haven't claimed anything.
Yes, you have. You claim.
Oh, really? I'm claiming deflection, am I?
You claim you know.
I claimed I rolled up and said apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. I claimed that, did I?
You claimed you...
No, I didn't claim anything. You claimed apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation, and you are going to continually attempt to reverse this burden onto me, like I'm claiming something. There's nothing to see. Nothing to claim. We're not seeing the Earth turn underneath a balloon. You claim we will. You claim there'll be apparent, that means you'll see it, deflection caused by Earth's rotation. Now you're scared of repeating that claim because I'll just ask you how much under a balloon, and there isn't any.
Now you're lying on me, Nathan.
I'm lying? No, I've got it recorded. This is a recorded show. You definitely claimed apparent deflection caused by Earth's rotation. End quote, Akumu virus.
Yeah, but I never...
Yeah, so I'm lying, am I? Kick him out. The guy's now projecting his blatant lies onto me. Scumbag, get lost. Somebody mute him and boot him. Not going to have it. Absolutely outrageous. You're going to lie and project all over me and then lie some more when you fail to prove your claim you made and say it's my claim indefinitely? Total scum, get lost.
I have a very important question. If Earth is claimed to be rotating and a hot air balloon doesn't demonstrate a Coriolis, can you tell me something that does? Because there is nothing that demonstrates any type of deflection.
No, there isn't. Everything would demonstrate it if we were turning underneath. We're not.
That's correct.
But if you know unit, maybe it will show in the nature. If you, Nathan, know the unit for the Coriolis effect, maybe then will show in the nature.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know the unit.
I didn't know the unit of the measurement of the deflection he said we're not going to see after claiming that the globe will induce a deflection. We're apparently going to see a deflection. Earth's turning underneath stuff like hot air balloons. Go and get the citation from Chocolate. It will back me in my claim that we will see deflection caused by Earth's rotation. How much in a balloon? None. Not travelling a long enough distance. Yeah, if you're watching this and you don't recognise that he's just literally following the motions of an anti-flat earther, that is claim Earth turns underneath, and then when a flat earther points out that it doesn't, say, we wouldn't expect to see Earth turning underneath.
The point is, it doesn't matter how much distance it would travel. Even if it would try to stay stationary, the Earth would be rotating underneath it, supposedly 15 degrees per hour, which is quite a hell of a lot of distance. So it's just a giant straw man.
Funny thing is, if you were to ask him to show you the Coriolis effect in something that is traveling a long distance, the answer would still be the same. Because they can't show it at all.
No, he can't show it at all. He was running out of real estate. That's why he started mumbling. It used to be not enough time, not long distance, but not long enough time above the Earth. So if it can happen to a bullet, which doesn't stay above the Earth too long, a couple of seconds or so, but it should happen more so if something can stay up in the air longer. They got it all backwards because it doesn't exist to measure in the first place.
They claim it happens in footballs and bullets. Oh yeah, are they travelling long distance? No, just a crap rebuttal.
That's crap, Nathan. I was anti-aircraft in the military, and I had big weapon with 3 pipes. Let's say, I don't know in English how you say. And I never count on Coriolis. It never was written in anything about my practice and anything. That's bullshit. What they are speaking about sniperists. I was shooting airplanes, man.
Well, forget Felix Baumgartner now, because apparently you can go above the surface 6 days and 5,209 miles, which was the world record for the farthest distance a hot air balloon has flown.
I just calculated it roughly, and it should be, what is it? 1,700 miles per hour? That's if something stays stationary underneath or over the spinning Earth, right? In an hour. It's quite a lot of distance. Not even giving a push in any direction.
I think Virus's favorite movie is The Day the Earth Stood Still.
First of all, he started with the math. Let's go to the math. Math.
Oh, well, now I've given the number, right? So it's roughly 1,700 miles per hour.
No, it's not.
Without any motion, just staying passive in the air. Now you have a numeric value.
No, it's not. Maximum rim velocity of an Earth that's claimed to be turning is about just over 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. The point is, when he says long distance, like, okay, well, it would be travelling a long distance if Earth was turning underneath it, but it doesn't.
Right.
So you got, I don't know how in meters how many feet this is or however high this is, but 41,424 meters is the highest altitude a manned hot air balloon has flown. Now couple that with the long distance record at 5,200 miles. He basically lost the argument the moment I started looking this up because he began to nitpick at the long distance bit. And it's like, well, okay, they travel long distance. Oh, well, time is involved. Get out of here. You're a fraud.
I don't know of any hot air balloon expert that goes up and says the reason we covered 1,000 miles was because the Earth was turning. It's usually given to currents of wind.
Right, and then if they size up the wind direction wrongly, then they end up in a completely different place, and then they get into trouble when they try to land.
I know it's just past the moment now, but the whole reason Virus got involved in the conversation was because he was correcting somebody in the chat saying that we were misrepresenting how the globe claims we have Coriolis, only to tell us to get the citation from Chocolate, which details how we will see this effect that we don't see under a hot air balloon, and then start nitpicking with nonsense that isn't being cited, flying in the face of his own citation. But it started off with him correcting people in the chat. It's like, what the hell?
Share your pain.
Yeah, he's one of those DJs. Like he takes the globe claims and remixes it to his liking, and then argues it that way. Right? They like to remix that shit because they obviously can't argue for it the way it is, right? Because it's obviously garbage. And if we could see this Earth-based Coriolis, we would just see it. We wouldn't have to ask anybody for it, right? So.
Does a globe DJ have a turntable?
Yeah, a giant one shaped like a ball that doesn't spin, and it's not a ball.
I live near wine country, and every weekend and sometimes on Wednesdays, the hot air balloon businesses are taking people up for sightseeing. And many times they land in the wrong place. One time they landed in some guy's property and they couldn't get out. It took hours and hours.
What do you mean you couldn't get out of the property?
Yeah, because
you can't leave.
The property's fenced in. They couldn't land in an open area for their vehicle, the truck that sights them and goes with them. So they were stuck at the gate for hours. I'm just watching them until contact was made, until someone opened the gate, because they couldn't.
That's like landing in a jail or something. In the middle of the jail, like, oh.
Yeah, it was funny because the people get out of the basket, and you could see that they're just trying to make sure the balloon doesn't hit any fencing on the property to put holes in it. I mean, they're struggling to get that balloon in a safe situation. And then at the same time, people are standing around, and I'm watching them, and they're just for hours under the hot sun, just waiting for someone to open the gate. But you know what? If the earth was turning underneath them, that wouldn't have happened.
With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and Jeepers panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!